Good morning, everyone. If you have just joined us, we'll be starting in a couple of minutes. Just please make sure that you can see the chat function there on the side. We've just asked you to introduce yourself, say hello, so we've got a sense of who's out there and what your fields are. Thank you. We've got a couple of people who have responded already, so that's great. I'm Langdon. I'm the head career coach at Career Success Australia. It's quite a mouthful first thing in the morning. Our program director, Naren, will be joining us in a moment, and then we'll kick off. It is just turned over 10 o'clock. We are expecting more people to join us. The people attendees at the moment, but we're expecting a few more. So we'll just hold off for a minute or two and then make a start on the program. We've got a lot to get through. We're going to try to squash in as much as we can to give as much value to you as possible. So I'll be back shortly.
Good morning, everyone. It's Naren here, Program Director at Career Success Australia. I think Langdon has just given you a bit of a good morning welcome. So welcome, everyone, from me. Thank you, everyone, for popping in your comments in the chat. As Langdon said, it'll be great if you could introduce yourself in the chat box there. Another important tip that we figured out last week, because this is the third session we're running, when you're writing your chat comments, you'll see there's a to tab. If you could select all panelists and attendees, that'll be great, so that everyone can see your questions. G'day Hector, g'day Prasad. So make sure when you're writing your comments, just tick or use the drop-down box for all panelists and attendees, so that everyone can read your comments. So we'll be using the chat box. If you have any questions during the session, what you could do is there's also a what do we call it, Langdon? It's a Q&A box.
Q&A, yeah. You should see it at the bottom of your screen.
Yeah. So do you want to just explain to people how the Q&A thing will work?
Yeah, so we've got the two ways you can communicate with us by writing. There's chat and Q&A. So the Q&A is more for a specific question you have, which you think possibly everyone could be interested in the answer. So if you put it in there, we can write an answer to it, and it will go to answered questions. It's a bit like an FAQ on a website, and everyone can browse through those at any time by going to the Q&A function. The chat is going to be more about just directly what's going on as we are presenting. So we might ask you for a bit of information like we have with your introductions, and we'll just get your input there as we're going through the program. More general questions, as I said, or something specific, just put in the Q&A, please.
So we'll just give it a couple of minutes. There could be some late arrivals.
Still seeing people join. Yep. Every few seconds, pretty much.
Yeah. In the meantime, guys, if you have any specific questions about how to get a job, or any issues you've been having in terms of getting some interviews, please use the Q&A box. You should be able to type in a question in there. It could be something about maybe a job interview that you've been to and you haven't gotten through. It could be something about your visa or work rights, as an example. So any questions you've got, today's your opportunity to have all of these questions answered. So feel free to use the Q&A box. All right. Well, Langdon, we should make a move. So let me just share my screen, and then we'll get started. So look, first of all, thank you everyone for attending today. It's great to be here with my colleague Langdon, who's our head career coach at Career Success Australia. Today's session is all about helping you guys to improve your job search and your job strategy to get into the market, especially during this pretty difficult time. So in terms of today's session, let me see if I can just minimize that. Cool. So in terms of today's session, here's a little agenda as to what we're going to cover. So we'll start off with number 3, a Q&A. So before we can actually teach you and help you to get a job, and before you can improve your prospects of getting a job, it's important to understand what the problems are or what the challenges are, okay? So we're going to do a bit of that, looking at what the key issues are. Number 4, that sort of branches into what do Australian recruiters and hiring managers want. What are they looking for? Because if you know what they want, then you can either go and get it, whether it's some technical skills or local experience. And if you know what they want, then you can go and get it and then present it to them, because that's what they want when they are making that hiring decision. So if you know exactly what they want, that drastically improves your chances of getting a job. Number 5, Langdon's going to talk a little bit more about job application essentials, what you need to do. And then number 6 is the biggest part of today's session. We'll try and focus our attention there, which is helping you guys understanding exactly how to keyword analyze a job advertisement, and then how to construct and design and write your resume, cover letter, and LinkedIn profile. And I'll teach you some networking tactics on LinkedIn. And then we'll wrap up with some interview training and Q&A at the end. So in terms of us and who we are, so we're Career Success Australia. We are a career coaching firm. We were ACES, and we were known as ACES for about 5 years, and then we've decided to streamline our name. And in essence, what we do is we help job seekers to get into the market. We specialize in helping people from overseas, so international students and graduates and skilled migrants, into the market. Our team consists of a range of people in terms of our coaching team, our internships team. We all come from different sectors. My background is in education, marketing, and business development in the FMCG sector, as well as working at different universities for about 10 years. Langdon's done a variety of things, from ESL teacher, ran his own business. My other colleagues, Eugenia and Farah and John, Luke and Nick, we've all got a variety of experience. So we channel our energy together to basically have our own methodology about how to get a job. And that's what we teach. We also have lots of industry links and partnerships, and that certainly helps us to get you into industry. So you can have a look at our website to learn a bit more about us. Okay, let's get into it. So why is it so hard to get a job? I'm going to throw to you guys now to use the chat box, and I'm going to give everyone a minute, and I want you to just pop into the chat box some of your ideas and thoughts, and maybe frustration points as to why you think it's hard to get a job. So I'm going to give you guys a minute, and then we're going to have a look at your comments, and then I'm going to share with you why I think it's hard to get a job. Okay, so I can see Langdon's writing. So guys, why is it hard to get a job? Pop in just use the chat box. Yes, Himanshu, PR is one issue. Anything else? Yes, Scarlett, experience, local experience, cultural fit is a good one. Experience, economics, yeah, Cherry, maybe you mean the market conditions, like right now it's pretty damn hard. Lena's lack of experience, yes. Experience, Ramia, yes. Local experience, correct. Yeah, Karina, I tend to agree. And lack of a change of field, Rakesh, yes, that's a good point. Cool, all right, I think we've got a nice mix of different answers, yes. Okay, beautiful. So here's my top 10 reasons why it can be hard to get a job. Number 1, it's competition, okay? Competition, it's you versus maybe 50 to 100 other candidates, okay? It's competitive. It's probably even more competitive now with this COVID-19 situation. It will get better, but it's still it's a competition. And think of it like this, the employers and the recruiters are shopping. They're shopping for the best candidates who match their skills, their team culture, their project requirements, and their future plans. And if you don't have local experience, if you don't have the right visa, if you don't have fresh, recent experience in a similar role, or perhaps you're too young, you're too old, you live too far, they'll choose the candidate who's a better match. Yes, local experience. For those of you listening today that are from overseas, local experience is an issue, okay? So we need to develop strategies around that. Just on the local experience issue, that is more critical in some industries. So for example, in structural design engineering, if you don't have Australian experience, it's tough. Whereas in software engineering, maybe all of your experience is from India or China or Malaysia, less of an issue, okay? Employment gaps. Again, if you've been out of work for say 6 months because you've had to relocate, or maybe you were made redundant, and you've now got a 6-month gap, employers will go, what's this person been doing? And we'll look at the other candidates who are currently working in a similar role that are looking for progression. So you've got to fill out employment gaps either with study, or you've got to explain it on your resume. 4, culture and English. Okay, for those of you that are English is a second language, you have to improve. How else are you going to get through a tough phone screening interview? Or when you've got a panel of 3 people firing questions at you, okay? And culture, sometimes that can come into play. Bias, yes. There are some recruiters that I know that will choose candidates from a certain demographic or region or age, as an example. I had one company contact me just the other day saying, Naren, we are looking for female-only candidates. It was an engineering company. Or they'll say, Naren, we've just had an awful period where we've had people from overseas and they couldn't understand our systems here. Skills. If you don't have the skills the companies want, you're not going to get selected. Market conditions. We know it's tough right now, okay? Or end of financial year. Or January, December, Jan are bad times to apply for jobs. The other reason it's hard to get a job, if your job applications are rubbish. We're going to fix that up today. You can't get a job if you don't network. If you don't get out of your comfort zone and start building your network, start talking to recruiters, talking to hiring managers, it's very hard because you're missing out on, say, 50% of the jobs in the hidden job market. And then it's hard to get a job if you don't know how to perform well in an interview. So we're going to cover off as many of these as we can today. What do hiring managers want? I'm going to throw over to Langdon, and he's going to talk a little bit more about this.
Yeah, so let's just jump straight into this and get through this as quickly as possible. So this is obviously very connected to what we're just talking about in terms of the barriers. You need to overcome each of those barriers to the best of your ability by working really, really hard at the various areas of the parts of the job search. So skills and experience. Now, how do you know what people are looking for? You may have a certain set of skills, but your best way of researching this is to be looking at job ads, as many job ads as you can on all the different platforms, including LinkedIn, and actually see what skills are being asked for, what specific technical skills. If you don't have one of those, as Naren said before, go out and find a course, start learning, do whatever you can so that you can add that to your documents, your resume, and therefore be a better match for those jobs that are out there. It's no good having skills in A, B, and C if what they really want is D, E, and F. Right? So, and we know that unfortunately, not all university courses actually provide people with the skills that employers are currently looking for. We had lots of people graduate where they just have gaps and are not prepared for the industry. So make sure you have a good look at what people are actually doing. Another way to do that is make connections in the industry through LinkedIn or any way you can, and talk to them, ask them, what are the skills that are being looked for right now? How can I develop those skills? What's the best way? What are the best courses? A lot of you talked about Australian experience, and this is what we call a catch-22, of course. You need Australian experience to get work in Australia. How do you get the Australian experience to start with? It's an awful thing to do, so position to be in, because you're still struggling to get that first start in the industry. If you can keep on applying for jobs, and if that doesn't work, then there are other options, including an internship where you go and do an unpaid placement in a company for 12 weeks. And what that does is give you solid experience, local experience that you can put on your resume. So that's one of the ways, probably, if you're really struggling to get into the market, that's probably your best strategy. You can either look for one of those yourself or come to a company like Career Success Australia that specialises in placing interns. So number 3, recent experience and no gaps. As we've said, as Naren said before, having a gap is a big problem, especially for recruiters as well, because all they're going to focus on is, what's this person doing now? What's their most recent job? That's what they're sort of fixated on. So if you have a big gap there, the last thing you did was sometime 2019, they are going to be concerned that you have de-skilled. What's this person been doing? Why haven't they been employed? It sounds strange, but they'd much rather take someone who's already got a job. It sounds, why not take the people who haven't got a job? But if someone's working, that means they currently have the skills. They're up to date, and are obviously employable. There might be questions about someone who's not working. Why? Is there something about them that means that they're not a good employee? So how to fill a gap in terms of documents, we talked about maybe putting in the study you've been doing. Again, having an internship is a good way to actually remove a gap, because you can say, I'm currently doing this, working with this company to do this work. High quality job applications, we're going to be looking at that today. Most resumes and cover letters are of poor quality, right across the board. At least 90% of resumes and cover letters aren't well written, don't target the key terms in the job ad, don't look professional, they're messy. They're actually easy for the hiring manager or the recruiter to just put into the reject bin, because they're just not up to standard. So we're going to try to help you with that today. Strong communication skills, Naren talked about. Obviously, you need to be able to perform well in an interview. And if you know English is a weakness, that's just a baseline thing you must be spending time on every day if you can, to improve. There's just no two ways about it. To perform well in a job in Australia, regardless of the job, you're going to need to be able to communicate well. Cultural fit, don't want to go into that too much, but this relates to that idea of bias, which Naren mentioned earlier. If you are applying for work in a company where it's mostly people who have been born in Australia, they're just not, they may have question marks about how you're going to fit in with the group, with the team. To flip this around, you can imagine in your home country, if you've come from overseas and someone from England or America applies for a job in a local company there, the same thing would happen. They would say, well, does this person understand how we operate here? Do they understand how to relate to people, how to talk to people, how to be respectful to people in an appropriate way? Those sorts of questions come up. So there are a few ways around that. One is possibly to, you may take an Anglo-sounding first name so that you don't sound too foreign. We do recommend that to our clients, to have a think about at least, as a way of reducing those concerns about whether you're going to fit in culturally. I won't go into more of that now. Let's just push on. References. If you haven't worked in Australia, obviously it's very hard for you to have a local reference, which is what especially recruiters, but also companies, I really want to hear about. From someone local, tell us about this person. Are they a good employee? Do they have a good attitude? What are their skills like? If you don't have any local references because you haven't worked here, maybe you've studied here, you've been doing a master's or something, some other course, you can sometimes approach your lecturers or professors for reference if they're familiar, if they've seen you do a particular project. Otherwise, you can do some volunteer work, maybe with a not-for-profit, in the not-for-profit sector. Try to get in there and help them in some way, and you can get a reference that way. But that's one way you can get some local references. Or through a community group is another possibility. Of course, you can always use overseas references, but Australian employers are not going to give as much weight to those because they think, well, the system might be different over there. Maybe this person's just a mate of the person. How do I trust that as much? Right? And finally, long-term hire. If you are on a temporary visa, then obviously they're going to have concerns. As someone wrote before, once you get to the question regarding your visa, it is done. That's a very powerful way of putting it, Karina. It is done. Like I hear from so many of the clients, they have a good conversation with a recruiter, and then the recruiter says, and what is your visa? I'm on a temporary visa. Oh, okay, thanks. We're looking for someone who's got PR. Bye. It's very difficult and heartbreaking, I know, if you are in that situation. However, there are employers who will take people on if you've got the good skill set, if you've got a matching skills to what they're looking for, and you have a fantastic attitude, and you know that, and you can show that you are a really hard worker. If you're from overseas, you're probably going to work harder in that job than someone who's locally born. It's a terrible thing to say. I hope this isn't being broadcast out too widely. But a lot of employers do know that someone who's come in that's in your situation is going to be working really hard to do everything you can to do the best by that job, because this is your chance to establish your career in Australia. So you've just got to demonstrate that, yes, I've got the skills. Yes, I've got the right attitude. I'm going to really do everything I can to fit in and do as much work as I can to basically provide the services that you need. That can help you get over the visa problem until you have PR. If you're going to end up there. I think we better push through now. Yeah.
Yep. Thanks, Langdon. All right, guys. So moving on. I'll handle this one, Langdon. So essentials to job applications. Langdon, if you want to have a look at the chat comments and see if there's anyone that needs any answering, that'll be great.
Yeah, no, we're good at the moment.
Okay, what do you need? 5 things. ATS-friendly resume, application tracking software friendly. Cover letter, you need a really powerful 1-page cover letter with, I will show you the structure in a minute. LinkedIn profile is critical in case they, as I call it, they stalk you. That's what I do when we're recruiting. I will get my list of 10 candidates, and then I will look at their LinkedIn profile to verify where they've worked, the employment dates, want to see what they look like. So LinkedIn's critical. Langdon's going to talk to you guys about the follow-up strategy. We've had heaps of clients that have applied for jobs on Seek. Their resume and cover letter never made it to the shortlisted pile, but because they phoned and because they sent a direct email, they were able to get their job application read, which is really important. Key selection criteria is something that is important for government jobs and uni jobs, but we won't cover that today. But if you have any questions on key selection criteria, just pop it in the Q&A. Okay, here's the main part of today, guys. Okay, we're going to show you exactly how to do a position description or a job ad analysis. Langdon's going to handle that. I'm going to walk you through a resume and show you exactly how to develop it using the right structure. Langdon will talk you through a cover letter and exactly how you should structure it and write it. We'll look at LinkedIn, tactics to find key decision makers and connect and build your approach to finding jobs in the hidden job market. We'll do a bit of interview training, and we'll talk you through those follow-up strategies. So I'll hand over to Langdon. Langdon, you can share your screen, and we'll start with a job ad analysis. And then, as I mentioned after that, we'll just spend a little bit of time on showing you this. We'll spend most time on the resume and the cover letter writing, and then LinkedIn as well. So over to you, Langdon.
Thank you. You can, yeah, thanks, Matt. So stop sharing. All right. So your starting point for the job search process, in most cases, is going to be finding a job ad, then preparing your documents and submitting them, lodging them online, especially if you don't have much of a network here in Australia where you're talking to people and you're hearing about jobs that are opening up. Then you are pretty much limited to applying for jobs you found online. So that's the process we're going to be looking at mostly today. We are going to also look at how you can build your network later on when we come to talk about LinkedIn. But let's just talk about applying for a job that's been advertised and preparing your documents. That's what we're going to spend the next hour on. So the first step obviously is getting the job ad. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Here's your starting point. Now, Naren, can you just confirm that you can see Seek?
Yep, I can see that.
Excellent. All right, so someone said in the chat box that they were an electronics engineer. So just wanted to point out a few things to make sure you're aware of this. So I've started typing that in. Obviously, I've got a range of options. If you know that you are someone who's recently graduated, you don't have a lot of experience, which I imagine is many of you, then I would be looking more for these junior electronics engineer, graduate electronics engineer positions, because they're going to be more suitable to your level. So we might tap in there. If you go here, it just means, I'll put in Melbourne, because most of you are in Melbourne. You're going to get a much wider range of jobs, including many ones that are very senior, and which you're not going to be applicable for. The other way that you can filter your search results down is by using the more options and limiting the top salary. Obviously, someone who has been in the industry for 10 years and has run lots of major projects, worked with a lot of big companies, is going to expect a higher salary. If you are a more recent graduate and you're looking to get your start in the industry, you may say, okay, a top of 60 or a top of 70. I know it doesn't sound much, but at this point, to make your start in the industry, the important thing is just to get a job. So I might put in 60,000 as a maximum there as an electronics engineer in Melbourne, and do a search for that. 41 jobs have come up at the moment. And so I can look through those. Now, a couple of other things to notice about here. Obviously, how recently it was advertised is an important factor as well. If it's already been there for 5 or 6 weeks, it's very unlikely that they're going to the chances are they're probably already interviewing. Right, so the more recent it is, the better chance you have of being an early applicant, which can help you get noticed more. Obviously, they're going to pay more attention, it's just a human thing. They pay more attention to the first 20, 30 perhaps applications that come in. After that, it's another application to look at and another application to look at, and they tend to go through more quickly because they start to become overwhelmed with the number of applications. So this is 1 day ago, that's pretty good. 22 days ago, I would be probably passing over that one because that's already been advertised for a long time. So here, if automation was your thing, this would be a good one. They're looking, already said, so it's a graduate automation engineer position. It was only advertised 3 days ago. So I'm going to look at this one. And I just want to point out a few quick things about reading a job ad. So first of all, don't skip over these introductory paragraphs. A lot of people just read through them very quickly, and then they get down to the you or your responsibilities. This is what you will be doing in this role. It's also important to look for clues about the role, or what might you be doing, or something about the company in this introductory paragraphs here. For example, I'm just seeing if there's anything interesting here to look at. Not a huge amount of this one, but look, this does say here, for use in the home and commercial environment. So that gives you an idea about the range of the markets, the target markets that they are working with. The other important thing to be right even before that is straight away, one of the most important questions you've got to ask is this being advertised by a company directly? Have they put it on Seek, or is it going through a recruiter? It's a very important distinction to understand because it's going to determine the language you use in your cover letter and how you communicate with them. If it is through a recruiter, you've got to remember that the company name there is not who you will be working for. They are someone who's looking on behalf of another company. So when you write your cover letter, as we'll come to later, you'll see you've got to say, I'm keen to work with your client. You can't mention the company name there because you're not actually going to be working with a recruiting company. So important distinction. So this one here, Smart Automation Systems, that very much sounds like that is the name of the company itself that is doing the employing. They haven't gone through a recruiter, they're advertising directly, so you can address your cover letter appropriately there. So, and it also means, because you know the name of the company, you can go and do some research from them. So you can search their, can you see this new tab? No? Or you, yeah?
Yep, I can see that.
Yep. So Smart Automation Systems. Smart Automation Systems, that's them. So you can jump on their website and read more about them. That's really important to get a sense of who the company is, what the services they provide, what products they do. You should be, there will often be an about section, or who are we? about us, our team, so you can find out more about the people who there. Look, this can tell you who the managing director is, who's the head of. Wow, see, we've got lovely photos of them too. So that helps also if you're writing a cover letter, you may be able to write specifically to one of those people. In a small company, if that's got 7 or 8 people, you'd probably be writing directly to the managing director.
Yeah, or Langdon, if we scroll down a bit, so you've got 3 automation engineers. So this graduate role probably reports into one of these engineers, but definitely, yeah, there's the MD there. So this is part of the follow-up. I'll just chuck my video back on. Sorry, Langdon, I'm disturbing you.
Being disturbed.
So this forms part of your follow-up strategy. Now you know who to write to. You can email them. You can pick up the phone and call after you've applied. So doing this homework and research is really critical. Adding that personal touch just shows how much more hungry you are for this type of job.
And if you can find out more about the company, that's something that you can add into the cover letter as well to say, I understand your service, your company. I want to work for your company because you do A, B, and C, or because you your values are such and such, or I've seen you working on this project, and that actually matches well with my skills that I've developed in a similar project. So I know when I was running my own company, if someone sent me a generic application and it was clear that they hadn't even looked at our website to pick out what it was that we did, that was a very easy no. If someone had taken the time to look at what our company did and how it was maybe different from other companies, that was someone I was more keen to have a close look at and maybe have a conversation with, because they've gone that extra mile. So this is a chance to do your homework if you know what the company is. If it's been advertised by a recruiter, that's closed off to you. You don't have that option. So I'll just go back and share my screen again. Oh, I still am. Can you see that ad?
Yep.
Still? Okay, you can. Excellent.
And
all right. So obviously, there are lots of key terms in here we want to highlight, want to identify, so we can use them in our application documents. There's some technical terms in there. There are what we call soft skills as well. So I'll just quickly show you what we ask our clients to do to focus on the key terms that they're going to use in their resume and cover letter. And I will find that document. Here we go. So many windows open. All right, so this is a suggested approach. What we ask our clients to do when they're starting a job application, they copy and paste the job ad into a Word document and go through and highlight for themselves the key words to focus on. So in this case, we've found some things in the introductory paragraph here so they can have a top tier client base. So if you have worked with top tier clients before, that's something you can highlight. I have similar experience. All areas of the testing life cycle, multiple domains, delivery methodologies and test processes, large-scale projects. So again, if you have been part of large-scale projects before, you can highlight that you have matching experience. And so they want someone immediately available, so they're in a hurry. So that's the sort of thing that you go, right, got to get my application documents in as soon as possible and make a phone call, because they're in a hurry. They may just take someone, the first good person who comes along, because they are looking for someone urgently. So what we've done here is just basically highlight the key words that we want to use, technical words we want to use in our documents. You'll see that there are some things we haven't highlighted. Mentor fellow team members in areas of project is difficult. Mentoring is not a particularly technical skill. It just means you help others. But we've gone through and highlighted where possible, where we see a technical skill that we could use in our documents. Now, there are 2 colors we've used here. As you've noticed, there's yellow and gray. This is our system. So we ask our clients, if it's a skill they have experience in, highlight it in yellow. That says, yes, I've done this, or I've studied this, I've got some level of experience in this. If it is something that you haven't done, for example, SIT, they've got here system level tests, and you haven't got that experience, put it in grey, so we can identify. That helps in two ways. So first of all, for you, once you've done that highlighting, if you can see that it's maybe 50-50, so half yellow, half grey, that's not a good match for you. You want at least 80% match of skills, at least. Obviously, the higher to 100% you have, the better chance you have of getting an interview. So you can tell visually straight away, this is a good job for me to apply for. I'm a strong match. If you're not a strong match, you're probably wasting your time preparing documents, because there will be someone who is a better match. The other thing is that it helps with us when we are reviewing the documents as career coaches. We can have a look and say, they've told us that they don't have CRM experience, they data migration, so that's an issue. So we can talk with our client about how they're going to get experience in that area, what courses they could be doing, how do we get around the fact that they haven't mentioned that in this particular job application, right? So there is an idea of how we get someone to really closely look at all those things. We also, to begin with, make sure that our clients can also identify all these things. So, as I said, is it advertised by a company directly or by a recruiter? When was it advertised? How recently? Sometimes there's a closing date. Obviously, you have to be aware of that. It's good to know, is it contract or permanent? You may have a better chance of getting a job where it's just a contract position, because then your visa conditions are less of a concern. If they're just looking for someone for 6 months, as long as you've got a visa for that time, that's going to obviously be a benefit for you. Is there a contact person's name in the job ad? In this one, there wasn't. Yeah, that's what they said here. Why does that matter? Because we want to address our cover letter to a person in particular. So if there's a name there of someone in the company, or if there's a recruiter's name, that obviously helps us, because we can address the cover letter to them and any follow-up emails and so on. So if there's no name there, you have to work a bit harder using LinkedIn to find someone to write to, or on the company website. As we've seen, you might be able to find someone who you can address your cover letter to there. Application process, and for some jobs, they may not just require a cover letter and a resume. They want key selection criteria document as well. Please write how you have experience in the key selection criteria for this particular role. So you have to be aware of those, the application process, what they're looking for as well. Sometimes I'll even say specifically, do not attach a cover letter. I've seen that as well. So obviously you don't need to do that in those, so save you the time. And then obviously this is what the highlighting we've done. What are the top skills? All right, so there's a quick overview on different ways that you can find the important information around the job. All of that is just to inform your resume and your cover letter. So we'll go over to those now with Darren.
Terrific, thank you. Thanks, Langdon. Okay, so what we're going to do here, guys, we're going to move over to the resume masterclass. Okay, so basically what I want to do is maybe just do a quick exercise to just see how much you guys know about the key structural elements and some of the basics, the essentials of what a good resume should look like. So I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to do a quick, what I call a quick quiz. It'll only take a couple of minutes, and then we're going to get into cover letter writing. So Langdon, can you see the screen there?
Yes.
Fantastic. So guys, 30-second resume quiz. I want you to pop your answer in the chat box. So number one, what should you have at the top of your resume? A career objective statement, a profile statement with some keywords, a career outlook statement with your photo, or should you start with your qualifications?
Himanshu is first. She gets, he or she, sorry, I don't know your gender, is the first answer, so well done. We're getting lots of A's.
Pop your answer.
So 4 A's, 3 B's, 4 B's, mostly B's at the moment. So it's a match between A and B.
Beautiful. The good news is, guys, B is the correct answer. Okay. A career objective statement, if you currently have one of these, take it off your resume. It's doing you damage. A career objective statement, let me just show you what one looks like. You can still see my screen, Langdon, yep?
Yes.
So these career objective statements will say something like this. I'm a diligent and hard working individual seeking a challenging position where I can make a good contribution to the accounting team, something like that, okay? The bad word to use in this objective is seeking a challenging, okay? So this is about what you want. Career objective statements are bad because it's about what you want. Your resume must talk about what you can bring to the company, what value you can add, how you can improve what they do, which means you need to use a profile statement. Talk about your skills, your qualities, your achievements, your technical attributes, and your projects that you've delivered, your qualifications as well. We'll show you one in a minute. So correct answer is B.
Can I just jump in there for a second, Aaron, as well? The other thing, could you go back to your little thing there? Okay, so there are a few other words in there that are a problem. Diligent and hardworking. So it's very easy to write these terms on an application, and people who are looking at resumes will see them all the time. On a piece of paper, they're completely meaningless. In fact, these are the things what we call soft skills, something I didn't mention when we looked at the job ad. Job ads will often include a mixture of these soft skills like, oh, good time management. You want someone who is very organized, someone who has good interpersonal skills, and so on. So these are what we call soft skills. And then there are also, on the other side, the technical skills, which are about the things that you can do in your industry. We are saying, do not talk about soft skills in your resume. Don't tell them that you are really organized and you are, you really have good time management, because it's meaningless. Anyone can claim that. Much better to just showcase what you have achieved in terms of projects you've worked on, prior experience, and the skills, technical skills you have. They're going to assess those soft skills later down the process when they talk to you on the phone to see what your communication skills are like, or in an interview, or through a referee, or just through the fact that you've managed to complete that project. Obviously shows that you do have those organizational skills, or whatever time management skills, whatever they are, because you've been able to achieve things. So that's how you give evidence of those. So stay away from the soft, wishy-washy words like I'm diligent, I'm hardworking.
Cool, thank you. Number 2, how many resumes should you have? 1, 2, 3, or 1 for every job? Just pop in your answer in the chat box, guys.
We're getting lots of Ds. Pretty much everyone's onto this one, Aaron. The game's up.
Very good, very good. Basically, guys, what you need is 1 for every job. When we go through the resume template, I will show you the 2 sections that you should change for the jobs. You don't want to be having to customize every paragraph and word, but with your master resume, you keep that as your big one, and then you can modify it. But that's awesome. You need to modify for every job. Now, what should you have in the employment history section of your resume? Responsibilities, key tasks, key duties and roles, or responsibilities and achievements? A, B, C, or D? What do you guys think? What's in the chat box? Hopefully we see a lot of Ds. What do we see there? Lots of Ds. Excellent, guys. So we want to see achievements and responsibilities. Ideally, you should have maybe 5 or 6 responsibilities, maybe 3, 4 achievements. One of the key things recruiters and hiring managers will be wanting to see are what you've produced. How did you reduce time? How did you improve efficiencies? Did you create a new automation of something? Did you support 50 new clients to do X, Y, Z? What did you do that added value to the company? That's really critical. This is an important one. My resume should include tables to organize my content, no tables, but plain text only, text and infographics, colors, icons, and pictures. A, B, C, or D. What should your resume include, or what should it be? How should the formatting be? A, B, C, or D.
We've got a couple of B's. We've got an A. We've got a C. We've got more B's.
Good.
A few C's.
Good.
Almost as many C's as B's.
Okay, guys, pretty good. I'm glad no one selected A, because can you see?
Oh no, well, 2 people did select A.
Oh, that's okay.
But they're quickly going to pretend that they mistyped.
So if you look here, guys, this particular document is using a table. Can you see here how we're using tables? Now, we've got text within the table. Now, when it comes time to these ATSs, application tracking software systems, Talio is one, there's a PageUp is another. Your job application will go through this software screening system, and it's scanning your document, your resume or your cover letter for keywords. And these are the keywords that Langdon showed you in the job ad, okay? Now, if you are using tables like this, it means some of these ATSs can't actually read the text. So if, let's say you've applied for a job, automation engineer, and one of the keywords that they've listed in the ATS is PLC, okay? Now, if they say only shortlist resumes that have PLC 5 times, if you've got PLC in these boxes, it'll come up as 0 because it hasn't been read. So the point is, no tables, guys. Your resume should be a plain Word document, okay? You can still create a visually appealing resume even if you don't use fancy tables or infographics, but it's safest to have plain text, okay? Last one, how many keywords should you have in your resume? 3, 5, 10, or D, as many as possible. What do you guys think?
Got D, lots of D's. I think they're starting to twig. There's a B question mark, otherwise all D's.
Beautiful, as many as possible, guys. So the bottom line is, when you do your PD analysis that Langdon showed you, you've got to highlight, you know, these are the top 5 or 7 keywords that they want. And then you've got to build them into your cover letter and resume. So good stuff, that's pretty good. Now, what we're going to do now is move on to our actual resume. So I'm going to share my screen again. And hopefully you can see our resume template.
Yes.
Now, ignore this. So I just wanted to highlight this top section of this resume is using a table here, okay? So if this goes through an ATS, it's not going to pick up name or sometimes city location, which is not critical. The rest, as you can see here, no tables. But I just wanted to show you how, it may not come up, but you could easily develop this into plain text, okay? So,
can I just check? People should have received this before today's session, is that right? Or have they?
If not everybody, we're going to email you guys a copy of this template.
Yeah, so you may have received this already as a template for you to use. If you haven't, then just let us know at the end and we'll make sure, obviously, that you get one.
Okay, this is a very basic template, guys, that we're going to use, but it's basic in the sense it shows structurally how you should lay out your resume. So we're going to go through this section by section, so feel free to make notes. If you have any questions, feel free to post those in the chat box or in the Q&A. So let's get started. So basic information at the top, city and state, your mobile, email, and we want to see your LinkedIn URL, okay? Put your LinkedIn URL in there because it adds credibility to you. It shows that you're, you're happy for them to look at, your photo and learn more about your profile on LinkedIn. So that's critical. Another thing to think about is this, your name. Now, if you're from overseas, you may have a couple of different names, okay? My heritage is from Sri Lanka, and I was born here, but my parents are from Sri Lanka. And there are some Sri Lankan people that have 5 or 6 names. And so I've seen resumes where the person's name will be, Kumar Sanjith Amar Rohit Singh. Okay. In Australia, just keep it simple and go Kumar Singh or something like that. Okay. The other thing you may want to consider, and this only applies if you're from overseas, which is a lot of people will choose an Anglo first name, because there are some companies where, take my name as an example, my full name is Narendra. That's my name, okay? My full name. Now, I've just dropped the DRA to keep it short, so 98% of all of my family and friends call me Naren or Naren or something like that. Now, when a recruiter or company just has the applications come in, normally what they just see is the name, okay? And in some instances, I know this for a fact, and there's research on this, which is when a recruiter or a company sees a non-Anglo name, they automatically reject, okay? So you can't go and change your name. That's a bit over the top. But what some people do to overcome that sort of discrimination or bias is to adopt an Anglo first name, just for the purpose of their job applications. I don't like it, and I think it's unfair, and I think it's a bit stupid, but I know for a fact if there are some recruiters and companies where if they were to see me as an example apply, if they just see my name, they're going to assume, number one, this guy, he doesn't have PR, which is false because I'm a citizen. I was born here. Number two, they're probably going to think, oh my God, his English is probably really bad. Okay, which is not, I can only speak English. Or number three, they're going to make the assumption, he's an overseas guy with no local experience. Reject on the spot. So by adopting an Anglo name, you minimize that risk. If you have any questions, it's a bit of a controversial topic, but please pop in a Q&A if you have any concerns or questions, and we'll answer them. Second thing is this email address. Try and keep it very simple. First name dot last name. If you've got a commonish sort of name, you can put 101 or something like that at gmail.com. Email's easy. The last one I think I want to cover is, in some cases, people will put 5 Smith Street, Sunshine. Okay. Now, Sunshine is located sort of the northwest of Melbourne, okay, or Tarneit or Altona. In the past, it was okay to put in your actual address, but nowadays, guys, just keep it to your city and state. The reason I suggest removing your actual location is because of discrimination. So if that person actually lives in Sunshine and they're applying for a mechanical or accounting job in, let's say, Brighton or Dandenong or Keysborough or somewhere on the eastern suburbs, the recruiter or the company will go, oh my God, it's going to take them 1 hour plus to get here. Let's find a candidate a bit closer. So by putting Melbourne, you're removing that, again, that bias. Now, it may come up in the interview, but at that point, if you've proven to them that you're the best candidate, or if you tell them, look, I'm currently living in Sunshine, but if I'm selected, I'm just renting at the moment. My lease is coming up. I'll be moving closer. Okay. So these are some of the little basic things that people don't get right in their contact information. Okay, moving along. This is the first section of your resume, guys, and it's called a profile statement. We covered this in the quiz. So this is like your quick, short and sharp summary of everything good about you as a candidate. And it has to be keyword optimized to the job you're going for. Can you see here, we've actually called it profile headline, but what I want you to do is give yourself an actual title in this profile statement. So you can call yourself civil and construction engineer, okay, something like that. Or you could be something like, could even say something like CFA certified, Okay, something like that. The bottom line is get a keyword in there. Okay. So if in the job ad they go where the job title is a data analyst, and let's just say we know they want someone with good skills in Python, then we can put that in, guys. Okay. So my point to you is keyword optimize your headline. Now, in the next section, we can have maybe bullet points like this. I usually start with bullet points to keep it easy. And I like to start by saying, I'm a this. I'm a civil and construction engineer, or I'm a civil and construction graduate, whatever your background is. Again, we're getting more keywords in, and we're starting with impact. With strong skills in, maybe 3 or 4. Make sure whatever you're listing here links back to what they want in the job ad. Okay, so we're always looking to customize. Next, talk about your experience. Okay, if you're a fresh graduate, maybe talk about some experience you had on an industry project. Or if you've done an internship, talk about your internship there. Another point you can have is something about any key projects you've been involved in. Okay, what software did you use? What skills did you demonstrate? And what was the outcome? And then finally, you can wrap up with your qualifications. So this section here is basically when a recruiter gets your resume and they're just flicking through. Page 1, they just scan the top, they go, ah, perfect, yep, I'm gonna keep reading. It's basically to get their attention so they keep reading. What I like to do with this section is actually put it into a short and sharp statement like this. Okay, so it's nice and easy to read. And what we're going to do, guys, is bold. Anything that's really critical from the job ad, I want you to bold it. Okay, can't bold everything, but only the critical things. So for example, if in the job ad says, we are looking for candidate must have, it's essential skills JavaScript, then that becomes whatever it is, whatever it applies to your particular field, okay? And Langdon, you can still see and hear me, yep?
Yes, I can.
Beautiful. So can you see what we're doing? We're making it easy for the reader to go, yes, this person has exactly what we want. Now, if you can do this effectively, we remove any discrimination in terms of visa or location or the fact that you're not from Australia, okay, or you have a funny name like mine. Because ultimately, and I know this for a fact, ultimately, because I speak to a lot of employers and companies, a lot of them, I'll probably say the majority, will offer you the job if they feel that you are going to work harder, you're more dedicated, and you have the closest matching skills, even if it's from overseas, okay? So companies here, I know I've talked about some companies are a bit silly with the discrimination thing, but the vast majority are good people, and they will give you a go if you can prove to them that you have what they want. Okay, so that's the top section of your resume that I want you to start working on. Generally speaking, you should write this last. Okay, once you've done all the hard work here, come back to it and then develop it. The next section is a really awesome section, I think, in your resume, because it's essentially a skills list of things from the job ad that are most critical. Okay, so once you've done your analysis of the job ad, you've got to build this list, 5, maybe 6 max bullet points. And what I see a lot of in resumes in terms of this section is people do this. They just list the words, customer service, AutoCAD, time management, okay? Or even technical skills like JavaScript. MYOB for accounting people out there. And that's it. have a think about this, guys. Is anything missing? What's missing from here? You don't have, you pop it in the chat if you wish. But what's missing is something that begins with the letter E. Okay? And that word is evidence. Evidence. I was looking at a resume the other day. I should have brought it up, but this person had listed, they had actually 3 columns of these skills. They had listed everything. Okay? And I was like, this is insane. And they only had like 1 year of experience. So I thought, there's no way you have skills in all of these areas. It's insane. But just by listing these words, you think, oh, beautiful. I've keyword optimized my application, just like Naren and Langdon taught me. It's not good enough. What's missing, guys, is the evidence. And so what we always encourage you to do is to add just a short sentence after the bold skill with some evidence. 2+ years experience providing support to patients, Okay. You could even finish off in my role at wherever. That's concrete evidence to say, hey, I have customer service, here's where. So you can start by saying 2+ years, or another way of doing it is to say, proficient in using, not suing, you're not a lawyer, in using whatever, to do what?
Could you just fix the spelling of proficient there?
Yep.
Thank you.
So, point is, guys, build your skills list based on the job ad, okay, and add the evidence. Now, the way I'm doing this resume is more for like white collar professional jobs. So if you're going for a job in retail, customer service, or hospitality, you may want to tweak it a little bit, but in essence, guys, this is the next part. Now, I've done a fair bit of recruiting, and there are some instances where I just read this and I read this and I'm sold. I'm like, okay, I'm going to call this person and have a chat. Okay. Normally I'll quickly do a quick sneak and go, what have they been doing? Okay. But this is powerful. Recruiters and employers, guys, will scan page 1 of your resume, maybe 10 seconds max. Okay. 5-6 seconds is that's all they're looking for. They're looking for keywords, and they're looking to see what is this person currently doing. Okay, and that's why it's absolutely vital to get some sort of experience on page 1. Whether it's an internship, could be an industry project, but you need something on page 1 at the bottom. Okay. Now, if you're a fresh graduate or recent graduate, you can put your qualifications on page 1. But if you've got like three years of experience, I would actually move this off. Push it down because it's taking up valuable real estate. Okay. And you'll also be listing some of these up here. So page 1 is critical. And so if it gives you more space to put some more of this, then good.
Very often, the first page is all the recruiter or hiring manager will actually look at and see. They won't even get to page 2 or 3. If they're not sold on page 1, why would they keep going?
Yep. So professional experience, here's how it should look. Your title, where you did the experience, the city, and the duration with the month and the year. Okay. Now let's just say you've got a big gap, and that was December 2019. We've got a 6-month gap. Try and explain it. So you could do something like this. Family leave, relocation, maternity leave, or pursue masters, okay, or further study. Okay, it's just telling the reader why you left. Okay, I wouldn't put things like, holiday, or I was burnt out. I was extremely stressed. I took 6 months.
Having a mental breakdown.
Yeah. So have a think about that if you've got a gap. Now, I'll come back to the issue if you don't have any experience, because there's another way you can lay this out. But this is essentially what you should do, okay? Every case is different, and I know everyone's different here, because your last role may have finished in 2018 back in Iran or Afghanistan or Sweden, wherever. So you've got to somehow think about, well, I've got a gap, but should I put it there? But because I'm currently working at Coles, do I put my Coles experience first? I don't know. Every case is different and we need to look at it individually, but we'll cover that after. But what I want to do is just focus on how you should lay this out for the moment.
We've got about 5 minutes just to keep you on time.
Thanks, Langdon. So 2 sections here, guys. Key responsibilities, key achievements. Every bullet point in this section should start with what I call a doing word, an action word, or a verb. Developing, creating, managing, excuse my spelling, leading, designing. There's hundreds of these. Coordinating, someone junior, assisting. Okay, these are action words and they're good because it sort of forces you to actually write an impact statement. Like this, developing month-end reports using, which included, what did you do? How did you do it? So every bullet point should answer these questions. The what, the why, the how, and really the result. Okay? You've got to tell the reader, here's what I did, here's how I did it, here's who it was for, and here's what happened. Okay? And it should be about 2 lines. Okay? Try and give as much detail as possible. So if you're only doing a 3-month internship, you may have 5, maybe 6 bullet points. If you were in the role for 7 years, you may have 10. Okay? Again, every case is different. After you've done your responsibilities like this, creating design documentation for clients to blah, blah, blah. It's like a mini story as well. That's another hint. Then we come to your achievements, guys. And really you should have 3 or 4 of these. These are the things that you did that were amazing. How did you go over and beyond what your role required? How did you fix something? How did you improve something? How did you deliver value? How did you cut costs? How did you improve the profitability? Okay. How did you improve a process? Okay. These are the things I want you to think about. Prepared 10 individual tax returns and 5 statements for 3 clients within quantifiable 3 clients, 2 weeks, which included using Xero to reconcile quarterly revenue, da-da-da. Now this is just made up, but it gives you a sense as to how you need to convey your achievements. There is one thing missing from this thing here, and that's similar to what we do here, adding like a bold, eye-catching word or words. So what I want you to do once you've done your achievements is to give it a bit of a headline. So this one could be, what could we do for this one? Reconciliations, maybe. Tax and reconciliations as an example. Okay. Now, again, I'm being a bit sneaky. If reconciliations is in the job ad, we're putting it here. So can you see how we're connecting? The recruiter or the employer in their mind goes, we want someone who is awesome at reconciliations. Guess what? We've actually done it and it's been an achievement in my last role. Okay, this is again strengthening your application. If you've got 5 years of experience, you know what? You probably don't even need achievements in Australia, I'm saying. 5 years local experience, 3 years local experience. You don't even need them. Because employers will go, oh, yep, this guy's worked 3 years at a local tax firm. Yeah, let's call him up. Okay? That's sometimes how it works. But if your experience is not from here, or if you've only got limited Australian experience, or if you're just a fresh graduate, then your job application needs to be super powerful like this. And that's why we're teaching you the full-on way of writing a resume. Now, if you've got part-time casual work, certainly listed in there, follow the same structure. And before I wrap up this section, if you're a recent graduate or if you've done projects, you can also list your projects like this.
In fact, I'll just jump in because Yen, one of the attendees, actually asked, since I've had the experience, is it okay for me to use, sorry, wrong one. Someone asked about using university assignments in the resume.
Definitely.
So is the answer to that question.
Yep. Fresh graduate, this is what I did when I finished my bachelor's 15 years ago. I didn't have any experience apart from I used to work in a supermarket. I put all of my projects up the top. Project name. What was the objective? Usually start with like 2. Investigate, design, to implement, whatever. Okay, 2 lines. Key tasks. What did you do? Okay, use those action words that I showed you here. Developing. And the most important section is what was the outcome? Okay. Okay, what was the result? Now, if you are a fresh graduate, you could put this, okay, here, bottom of page 1, okay, because it's more relevant. Key software design projects. It definitely is more relevant than saying customer service, okay. If you're applying for a graduate software development job, which one's better? Customer service at Woolies or presenting your uni projects first? I think uni projects. So that's the other key section, guys, that you can use. And then another one that you could have if you're very junior or graduate is any volunteering work you've done. Okay. Again, everyone's resume is going to be different, but here's a sort of template and format that I think you can use. Referees, look, you don't need them anymore, really. It's assumed that you will have references. The only time I would add them in is if you are applying for a job, let's say software, graduate software developer, and you did an internship that finished like 2 months ago at, let's just say, you can list it like this. Okay. So if you had previously worked at AMC as a junior developer or an internship, I would probably put his name like that because it adds credibility. Okay. Now, if you're currently working at AMC application developers, don't put it. Don't put it put people at the company you're currently working, because it tells me that they're happy with him leaving. That sounds a bit dodgy to me. So, if you have a reference from your current company, don't put it. The only time you should really give references is if they ask for it in the job application process on Seek. Okay, but apart from that, the safest option is you can do it like this. But it's not really necessary. It's assumed. So there we have it, guys. A quick crash course in resume writing. Now, if you think, oh yeah, I can knock this up in a couple of days. No, I'm an expert at writing resumes. I'm not good at a lot of things, but one thing I'm good at doing is writing resumes. It's probably the only thing. For me, just to give you an idea, it took me, my last job that I applied for, which was 6 years ago at Melbourne Business School, I spent probably at least 2 to 3 solid weeks every day writing my resume to get through to the interview stage. And I'm an expert at this, so it takes time. So don't rush it. Go through this structure that we've just shown you. I hope it's been helpful. If you have any questions on what I've covered in this little exercise, you can use the Q&A box. But that's all from me on resumes. I'm going to now just check our slides to see what we're doing next.
Cover letter.
Beautiful. Time for cover letters. So I might just handball over to Langdon, who's going to take you through cover letters now.
Sure. Just I want to make a quick point. Darren said it took you a couple of weeks to develop his last resume. Now, that's not every resume that you write, because we said you're going to customize and have an individual resume for every job you apply for. That's going to take you time to develop your, what we call a master resume, which is the one which has all the details about your prior experience and so on, has a good structure in there, has a good list of key skills with evidence. That's the time-consuming part. Once you have applied for a few jobs and you are used to that process, the customizing, which is where you just make sure that you're addressing the key skills from the job ad, isn't going to take that long. Maybe it will take a day at the most. But it's such an important part of that process. If you are not doing that customizing and the hiring manager is opening up your document and not seeing key skills in the first 5 to 10 seconds, there's a very good chance they're not even going to read any further. They're just going to say, this person isn't a match. Out it goes. Next person. Because they know that there'll be 5 to 10% of resumes in there that do match well, and they'll be looking for those ones. Make sure yours is one of them. Okay, we're going to switch over to...
sorry, Langdon, can I jump in?
Yeah.
Very quickly, guys, before we move to cover letters. So as Langdon said, all you need, once you've built your master resume like this, the things you're going to really update, you could do two job applications a day, maybe more. But you're just going to be playing around with this, updating this section here, updating this. You're going to leave that. You may tweak some of your responsibilities and achievements. What we sometimes do is go, okay, well, this bullet point number 6 is more relevant than the first one. We're going to move it up. Okay, so you're just going to do some fine tuning, but a lot of it will stay the same apart from these sections here and maybe a little bit of updating here. Okay, so over to you, Langdon.
Thank you. Right, I'm going to share our template. So again, hopefully you have received this. The top part, I'll talk through this as quickly as I can because we're a little bit behind with our schedule. We want to make sure we cover everything. The top part obviously looks very familiar because you've seen the same thing in the resume. This is one key way that you can make sure your application looks very professional and that you are someone who has good attention to detail. Don't tell them what great attention to detail you have and then have sloppy documents, because they're going to pay attention to what your documents look like rather than what you've said. So make sure this matches, even if it's a copy and paste out of the resume, that's probably the best way to go. One way to show that you're professional is to have carefully matching design on both your documents. It says you have that attention to detail. Now, I've just added a few things in here, which I'm not sure they were in the template that went out. So obviously you want to have the date of your application. This is the person you are writing to. And the other line here that I'll just make sure you've got that in is dear someone. Now, I talked earlier about the importance of writing to someone in particular, rather than just having a very generic cover letter that's not addressed to one particular person. What we used to see, lines like, to whom it may concern, or the other classic was, dear sir, madam. If you've ever used these, that was the end of your application. There was a good chance that they didn't get any further. So we do not want to have these because we want to write to a particular person. Now, how do you know who to write to? Well, sometimes it's in the job ad, as we've said. Maybe they've been kind enough to let you know, if you have questions about this role, please contact so-and-so. It might be the recruiter, it might be someone at the company. If they haven't done that, then you have to work harder. We've already seen you can go to the website and have a look if they've got an about section with the particular roles. That will be the case for many smaller or small, medium-sized companies. They will have the information about the different people in the company on the website. The other great source for this, of course, is LinkedIn. And let's take an example. So I'm just going to share another screen. Go to LinkedIn. And I'll just guide you through this process because this is...
Can't see your screen, Langdon.
No, there it is. Can you see it now?
Can see now.
Excellent. All right. So let's say, now forget the name of that company that we applied for. I'm going to just actually go to Seek again. And what was someone else? It was a software engineer, I think. And there we are. They are looking, this company, Analyse AI Pty Ltd. They are looking for this senior software engineer in this case. I looked through, is there a name? There's no name. Oh, there is actually. This one is, they've given their head of talent. Right, so that's nice of them. So that's who you would address your cover letter to. Let's say that wasn't in there. So what we need to do is find that company on LinkedIn and then find who the people are who work there and then find the best person to address the cover letter to. So I'm going to put that into my search engine up the top there. And I've just pressed enter. And then I'm going to go to companies under the more button. It's a bit hidden. So this is a slightly obscure process. So companies, and oh, they haven't come up. That's terrific. That's just what you need when you're trying to do a presentation, isn't it? So maybe it's to do with the fact that the exact phrasing isn't correct. So now we've got analyze, marketing intelligence. Again, this is obviously not a most fantastic. Either they don't have a LinkedIn listing, or that's coming up differently. So let's say that it was Analyse Marketing Intelligence. Basically I want to show you the process that we're going to use. Not a great option. That's a very small company, this one. How do I know it's very small? Because over on the right-hand side, there are 6 employees. So don't mind the fact that this is actually obviously in, I don't even know what language that is. It looks like it's Dutch or something. So I'm going to put in a different company that we know. Give me an example, Naren. I might have gone brain dead.
Hang on a tick.
Let's just go back to our jobs.
No, Langdon, if you actually just search for Analyze AI, it comes up with quite a few. I'll share my screen. I'll just quickly show people.
Sure, thank you.
So it's a bit fiddly, guys. Sometimes the companies are good. Can you see my screen?
I'm just going to stop sharing mine.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
So yes, it's a bit like detective work. Sometimes you have to try this, you have to try that. You're looking for all the different clues to make sure you found the right company, because sometimes they're a bit hidden.
Yep. So basically, you can search what Langdon was doing, but you could go Analyze AI. That's what I did. And there, so it's a bit funny. Like, you've got to play around with it a bit. But there it is there. Now, if the location is, do you remember where it was, Langdon? Doesn't really matter. But you can see here, we've got a lead, a tech lead. You've got, senior software engineer. So you could attention your cover letter to Marco or Mark, maybe Nicholas, operator. So there's quite a few there. So it's probably a small to medium company. The other option is you go to their website. Their website may even show you who the technical lead is or the director. So the bottom line is, now we're getting out of the zone, but certainly page 1. If you get stuck, I would probably just go, probably Mark or Nicholas as your options in terms of who to address your cover letter to.
All right, thank you. I'll just go back to my screen. A couple of things to be aware of. So there might be a large company, and if it is John Holland, company in construction. So if you're some sort of civil engineer or maybe to do with infrastructure, then you might be working for a large company. You can see over here on the right-hand side, they've got 4,500 employees. Now, obviously, you don't want to look through 4,500 employees to find the right person. Much too, you can just keep on going forever. 4,500 results, 4,700 results. So in this case, as Naren said, first of all, you can narrow it down by location. So you might go Melbourne, and that's going to knock it down to 1,400. So that's a help. But the only thing you can do then is actually to just use the search bar up here to find a particular person. So in a large company, they may have their own dedicated people to what we call the onboarding process, so the recruitment process. And they will often be called talent acquisition people. So I can write in here just the word talent and search. What it's doing is it's not searching the whole of LinkedIn, it's searching those 1,400 employees that I've got listed there. So it's brought it down now to 41. And what I might be doing is looking for some sort of talent acquisition. I could go talent acquisition. Not coming up. But I can see sort of resourcing manager, group manager of resourcing. So the may come up under talent acquisition. If not under talent acquisition, sometimes you might want to look up for under human resources. So you might be writing to the human resources manager. There's a senior manager of human resources. So learning, development and mobilization, senior human resources advisor. So head of HR for John Holland Rail. So if that was the division you're applying for, that Jared could be a good person to write to as well. So a lot of this will depend on the size of the company, but essentially what we're saying is LinkedIn is your tool to find the right people to apply for. So I'm getting the signal to keep going here because we are running out of time. So I'm just going to go back to our cover letter screen. Right, so I'm just going to quickly talk you through the different parts of the cover letter. So now we know who we can write this to. Don't write esteemed or anything venerable or anything. It's just dear Michael. The other thing is to note, this is just the first name. In Australia, we use first names, even if you don't know the person. A lot of the places where you come from, it's much more of a formal basis. So you might, dear Mr. Harding, or dear Mr. Michael Harding, whatever the person's name is. That will instantly show the person that you are not familiar with how things do operate in Australia. You don't have a good cultural fit or good cultural understanding. So out the window straight away if you are not using their first name. So just the first name, dear Michael. Even if it's a CEO of a company, if you are addressing them, dear Mr. So-and-so, you instantly say, I am someone who's new to Australia. I don't know anything about how to write to people locally. So how is it likely that you're going to understand how to operate in that company? Very important, just first name. This first paragraph, if you have a look at it, I'm a so-and-so with experience in these areas from the job ad. Right, this should be from the job ad. Again, key skills. I have done this, key skills. That should, and I have got this degree. That should be familiar to you by now. That's very, very close to your profile statement from your resume. So that's essentially where you'll take the content and share it across these two sections. They might not be identical, but this is your chance in 5 seconds at the top of your document to display that you have the key skills that the company is looking for. So they're going to be very similar. The main difference here is at the end of this, we're not writing this sort of information in the resume because it's a broader document that is meant to be applied across job applications. In this one, you want to write in particular about, I'm keen to bring my experience to, or in another chance to use your key skills here, to your client, if you've identified that it's a recruiter, or to the company, to Annalise AI, if you know the name of the company and you know that you're writing directly to the company, right? Don't get this wrong, because again, if you say, if you put in here to hire personnel, I'm keen to bring my experience in software development and user testing to hire recruitment. Hire recruitment is just the people who are finding you for the company, that would be an instant rejection as well. This person doesn't understand that we're a recruitment company. So how are they going to understand this whole process? So make sure you've used the correct form there. The second paragraph is an opportunity for you to talk about the particular company if you've done some research. Now, you cannot use these paragraphs, paragraph 2, either of them, if you are writing to a recruiter and you don't know who the company is. In that case, just skip this particular paragraph, nothing you can do. Only this you can write to it, obviously, if you know who the company is. Please don't research a personnel recruitment company and say what a great team they are. Right, so we've just got 2 versions of this based on whether you're a graduate or whether you are someone who already has quite a bit of experience. Most of you probably more the graduate level if you are doing this masterclass, we're assuming. So you are, one of the good things that you can showcase is your passion and your commitment, your enthusiasm, right? That's a big thing that's going to set you apart perhaps from other applicants. So I was excited to learn about it. It shows that your enthusiasm for this role, and you are showing at the same time that you have done your homework about the company. You've looked on their website. You have looked on their LinkedIn page, maybe to see what some recent updates are. You've looked on their Facebook page. So you are following that you have done your homework. You know what this company is providing in terms of services or products. And hopefully you've been able to relate that to some experience you have or projects you have and make that connection. You say, look, you know what you do? I've done similar things. I can definitely bring experience in what you're looking for to your company because I've already got it in another one. So in the sense, the phrase is, I can hit the ground running. I'm already set to go rather than I'll have to spend a lot of time learning. Right, so that's what that second paragraph is about. The next 2 paragraphs are going to be a description of your relevant experience. So hopefully you have something either in a role that you have worked in or through your university projects if you are a graduate or someone who's still studying. So this is a summary. The information will come from your resume. You've already developed those sentences about what your responsibilities were, hopefully in a good amount of detail, with very specific information about maybe the equipment you used or the software or the tools, what particular subject matter you were studying, what it was for, who the client was, perhaps as much detail around those as possible. This is your chance, very much as if someone had said to you, oh, so you worked at this client with the reviews here, worked at Bosch. Tell us a little bit about what you did in 10 seconds or 15 seconds. So it's a very just basic summary of the top skills that you had there, or the responsibilities, maybe the types, and this person can talk about the car models they worked on. You might, as a laboratory technician, talk about the different types of tests that you did, whether it was food or chemical or pharmaceutical products you were testing. If you are sort of an engineer, you might talk more about the particular types of buildings, whether it was residential, whether it was commercial, was it education buildings or infrastructure. Again, so the basic overview of what you've done in that role, and then the key responsibilities that you had. So I did this, I did A, I did B and C and D. And ideally, of course, those things you're mentioning line up with the key skills in the job ad. This is another chance for you to talk about how you have relevant experience for the job ad. The next section we suggest is basically this can be copied and pasted out of your resume. It's showing again that you have the key skills from the job ad. We've got key job title from PD experience at the top of it. Again, that is a chance to match up with the key skills for the application tracking system or tracking software, so that that software can see definitely you have matching key skills, and then copy to paste the top 2 or 3, however many you can fit in here, and then a final paragraph just to sum up to, again, include the key terms from the job ad. I strongly believe my extensive experience or my strong experience, strong skills perhaps. If you don't have extensive experience through work, maybe your strong skills as a graduate in these areas make me a good match, and I'm keen to work for your client or the company, or bring these skills to the company. You can see the rest of the information there. I won't go into details there. So, yes, we've used key skills right through the document to make sure that application tracking systems and a human reader, wherever they look in your document, in your cover letter, are going to be seeing those key terms that they're looking for, that they've put into the job ad. So they appear in there, they're going to appear in the second paragraph, in the third and fourth paragraphs, hopefully, in your key skills list, and in the final paragraph. So over and over, you are saying to them, what you're looking for, I've got. I think that's what we better have time for, Naren. So according to my schedule, we were going to take like a little 5-minute break.
Yep.
Now, 15 minutes ago, so about 15 minutes over. I think that's probably worth doing that, because I know we're hitting you with a lot of information. So we might just take a short 5-minute break now for you to go and use the bathroom, get a drink of water, cup of tea quickly. We'll still be here, just basically answering any questions that you've got that come up in the Q&A, or you want to type them into the chat. But this is your chance just to give your brain a bit of a break before we hit you with the next round of information.
And the next section, guys, we're going to cover off is LinkedIn. So I'm going to spend maybe 15, 20 minutes on LinkedIn. You can see the slide up on the screen there. We're going to cover off some of the key things. And then I'm going to show you exactly how you can use LinkedIn to network your way to getting a job. Sort of the stuff we've showed you at the moment is good if you're applying for jobs on Seek. And that should be half of your strategy. The other half is really about what I'm going to show you next. So we'll start this. It's 11:37. We'll come back in about 5 minutes. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat box. Langdon and I are still going to be here, and we can certainly answer any questions you've got on the chat.
I've got a couple of questions in the Q&A. Thank you. So there's a question there about, it would be better to write down cover letter page within one page. I didn't mention that, my apologies. Yes, absolutely. Your cover letter should be no longer than one page.
Yeah.
The resume, I'm not sure if Naren covered the length of that. We suggest no more than 3 pages as a maximum. If you don't have a lot of experience, because you're a recent graduate, that might be 2 pages. But definitely the cover letter, 1 page.
Yeah, and you've got to be careful with your cover letter as well, guys. I'll just, before we kick off on LinkedIn, I'll just show you. Can you see my cover letter on your screen?
I can't. I'm still seeing the Masterclass.
Yep. Let me just try this. I want to just quickly show you
switch out
something to avoid, which is this. So you can see here, this is the cover letter, right? And clearly we're over 1 page. So what some people go is, oh, I can get this into 1 page. I'm just going to do this, and we're going to make this maybe size 8. And beautiful. We're into 1 page. Okay. Then you go, I've got a bit more room. Make this maybe 9. Fantastic. Oh, we're still in 1 page. But 9 font is too small, especially if they're going to print it or if they're reading it on, you know, an iPad or something. And so what I encourage is always 10.5. Oops. 10.5. And also the paragraphing of this, and Langdon, we probably need to set some standards here, but is to have it as some people go single, and it's very tight. It's very hard to read. I prefer to go paragraph, multiple, 1.2 or 1.15 as we had it before. Easy to read, okay?
Okay, Darren, there's a question there. I notice you are recording the session. Any chance we would get sent the same one? I actually don't know what the answer to that is myself.
Yes, we will aim to send this out. That's why we're recording it. So we'll send the link and some templates as well. All right, I think we'll get cracking on LinkedIn, Langdon.
Yeah, good idea.
Okay, cool. So I'm just gonna share again. Okay. So can you see my screen?
Yes, we're back on the PowerPoint. Yep.
Okay, so we've got 9 sections here to cover off. LinkedIn, here are the top things I want you to look at. Profile picture, professional, head and shoulders, corporate look, and a smile, okay? Vanity URL, I'll show you one of those. LinkedIn will assess the strength of your profile, okay? And I think the best, or when your profile is maximum, it's like superstar or something, and that means every section is updated, and you've got projects in there, you've got your headline in there. So you want to get to that point, which is you're a super user or whatever the term they use. If you're job searching at the moment, I want you to trigger the notification to let recruiters know that you're looking for opportunities. And I'll show you that in a minute. The next section there is your headline statement, and you need to optimize that with keywords. Then there's like an about section. This is like a bit of a cover letter. Okay, I'll show you one in a minute. Skills and endorsements are easy. You can definitely create your employment section or your professional experience section similar to your resume with responsibilities and achievements. And then you can add some projects at the end. So what we're going to do now, guys, is have a look at a LinkedIn profile. And we're just going to work our way through how that works. So hopefully you can see my screen, and maybe we'll kick off with my profile, and we'll have a look at that. Actually, we'll go to someone else's, which is a bit better. So let's have a look at maybe Harshita's, a former client of ours. And you can see she's got a nice smiling profile photo. She's a laboratory assistant. And you can see she's in that sort of setting, which is good. What I like about Harshita's profile is her about section here. And we'll come to this in a minute because this is a very good one. But the first section here that we saw in the slide is really about your profile photo. You can see mine on the right side here, suit and sort of suit professional look. And that's what I want you to look like, okay? Another nice one there. This one's not the best because she's not smiling. That one's sort of a uni photo. This is not professional. I don't even know what you look like. That one's a selfie. Avoid those. That's a really nice one. You can see he's smiling. It's a black and white. So have a look at your photo. Make sure it's professional. The next section that I want you to focus on is your headline statement. Harshita's got a job, but if you're job searching, what you actually need to do is have keywords in your profile. So let me just double check that that we're sharing the right screen. Beautiful. So this is another former client, Sai, and he's an engineering graduate. And this is excellent use of keywords, okay? An excellent use of keywords. And if you can't see my screen, just use the Q&A, the chat box, and we'll just get Langdon to check that in a minute when he's back. You can see here the use of keywords. Skilled in CAD, 3D modeling, design, prototyping, FEA simulations. Perfect, okay? So think about your industry and your particular field. Langdon's actually in the room next door, and he's just back from a bathroom break. Langdon, you can see my LinkedIn.
All my secrets are revealed. I can, yes.
Beautiful. So, keyword optimize your headline, guys, because LinkedIn works in a similar way to Google. Okay, if a recruiter's searching for an R&D engineer, okay, because Sai has this in his headline, and especially if he has more of R&D engineer in his about section, he's going to come up the rankings, okay? So he's more likely to get found by a recruiter if he comes up in the search algorithm or ranking. So if I look for an R&D engineer, okay, and I'm going to search for people because that's maybe I'm recruiting for an R&D engineer, and my client is in Melbourne. Okay, and here are all, there's 6,000 of them. Okay, there's a lot of R&D engineers. Now I can apply more filters to say mechanical. So we could even put here mechanical, R&D engineer, 2,700. Okay, now as a recruiter, I have some other functionality, which then allows me to only search for people who are open to opportunities. Okay, and then you can see here, if I come across, say, this person here or whatever, this person here, I can contact them and go, hey, are you open for a new opportunity? So my point is this, guys, if you haven't optimized your LinkedIn profile with keywords, you're not going to get found. And if you don't get found, you can't get notified about job opportunities. So profile photo, headline statement. Another interesting one is this. Always, like your cover letter, put your capital city. Sometimes people will put, can you see how Harshita here has put her location as North Ryde? Okay, now if I'm looking for a candidate for a job on the other side of Sydney, I'm going to go, oh, she's too far. Sydney traffic is worse than Melbourne. So keep it as Sydney, New South Wales. So next section I want you to focus on is certainly triggering this, and you can do that through your privacy settings. Okay, you can click on that and then you'll find out exactly where you can tick the box to go, yep, show me as open to opportunities. Now, the other thing is this, you can see in, say, my profile, my LinkedIn URL is very neat. It's just my name. And this is good because it can fit perfectly on my resume and cover letter at the top. But when I first got my LinkedIn profile, it had all of these funny numbers and digits after, okay? Like Sam Balu, very nice. He would have had all these weird numbers and things, but you can go to a vanity URL. Again, it's in your settings, or Google vanity URL, set that up. No point putting your URL if it's long and ugly in your resume. So fix that up. This is a really important section of your LinkedIn profile. It's the About section, okay? And it should look like this, okay? Introduce yourself. My name's this, and I'm a that. You would have noticed this sort of structure before, guys. It's very similar to your cover letter and your resume. So my advice to you is always create your resume and cover letter first, and then come to this. You're going to talk about your technical skills, talk a little bit about your experience here, qualifications, and your skills list, followed by an email so people can contact you direct for jobs. So this is what recruiters are going to study and go, oh, fantastic. This person has exactly what I'm looking for. Sai has done very similar. He's used a different icon, which is cool. Very nice. Okay. Hopefully that you can see that. Like I see a lot of LinkedIn profiles where they've just got like 3 lines. And it's like, what are you doing? Like you're underselling yourself. If you're in the business of trying to get a job, you have to sell your strengths and your skills. Okay.
You've got to look at it as a marketing activity, really. That's the way we approach it. You are selling yourself to the market, and this is an opportunity to do that.
Yep. Now, once there are some other sections of your LinkedIn profile, like take, for example, Sai did work at CSIRO. He was a research engineer. Key responsibilities. Sai has been a good student of ours. He's using all of our tactics. Key highlights. Good man, Sai. He's worked overseas at Zomato as an account manager. Again, responsibilities and highlights. Qualifications, skills and endorsements. So this is where you can endorse people and for their skills and they can endorse you. So he's got a few there. He probably needs a few more engineering ones. He's only got a couple, but that's okay. This is important. He's got his interests and hopefully he's following some companies. Yep. So he's following, hopefully there'll be an engineering company. Yes, Invatech, CS Energy.
John Holland was in there.
Sorry?
Yeah, John Holland was in there, I think, up above.
Yeah.
Oricon.
Yeah. Recruiters. So he's following these companies because they're going to come up in his newsfeed. So for example, if Fuse Recruitment, if he's they've got 14,000 followers, they will post jobs. And because Sai's following them, it's going to come up in his newsfeed. Okay. One thing Sai hasn't got here are the groups. So LinkedIn has opportunities for you to be part of groups, okay? And if you're part of lots and lots of groups, like mechanical design engineers group, sometimes people will post jobs there, or there will be recruiters in there, or you can find a mentor in there. This is part of your networking strategy, okay? So my point is you've got to really be active on LinkedIn, be part of different groups, follow companies. And the last thing I want to cover on LinkedIn is how to connect. So once your profile is looking really sharp and it's looking professional, then I want you to start trying to connect with people. Okay, now if you look at Langdon's profile or my profile, we've probably got a few thousand connections. If you've only got like 30, that's okay. You've got to start somewhere. I started with 30 as well. And then I want you to find recruiters and companies to really connect with. Say, this company that we looked at, Annalise AI, okay? Now, there's two ways of connecting. One is you connect after you have applied for the job, or let's just say that, you know, you've found, let's do this. Let's say can I open it to anyone here? Can someone use the chat box and tell me what sort of job are you looking for? And I'll just pick the first person and I'll show you exactly what to do. So use the chat screen and just tell me what job are you looking for and I'll show you how to network. Someone was quick. .NET developer. Okay, cool. Sorry, sorry, Vincent and Saad, but we'll look at, Asha, Salesforce admin. Sorry, guys, we'll use Salesforce admin, Asha. But all of you other guys follow this same principle. So let's say, Asha Kiran, you're unemployed, but you've got some Salesforce certification and you want a job as a Salesforce, but there are no jobs. You've applied on Seek and you've tried all the options, nothing. So we're going to search for Salesforce. And Asha, let's hypothetically say you're in Melbourne. So what you're looking for, Asha, are people with Salesforce in their title, okay? Now let's say you're in Melbourne. And 18,000 that have the word Salesforce. Can you see how the algorithm is working? Because now it's in the headline. She's a lead solutions engineer at Salesforce Education, maybe. So these people work at Salesforce, which is okay. So these guys are all at Salesforce. Fine. So let's try Salesforce specialist. Oh, solutions architect. What we're doing here, Asha and everyone listening, is finding people who now have that as their title. And what it's going to show us is something very important. It's going to bring up the people and it's going to tell us where they are working. These people are all at, okay, this is good. So we've just done a quick search and we've found one person, Nithin Kumar. He's a technical architect at Salesforce, but see, he worked previously at Simplus Australia. So that tells us, guys, that this company here has hired someone as a Salesforce specialist. Let's just keep looking and see if there are others. Cattle Dog Digital, Salesforce partner, that's another potential company. Let's try one more. Currently, Salesforce Solution Architect at System Partners. So what we're going to do now is search for that company, Simplus Australia. Because we know that they hire people that may be interested in Azure. They've got 49 employees. Okay. Azure, this is perfect. Anusha Dar in Sydney is the person you need to start reaching out to because she's the national recruitment lead. And guess what? Anusha will know if they are looking to employ someone as well. Let's see if there's anyone else that we can connect with. Actually, we'll do one other thing. That's okay. Is there anybody else? Senior project manager, not bad. Practice director would be good. MD, he's the head honcho. Reed Meldrum, okay. So I think we'll go back to the recruitment person, Anusha. Here's what we're going to do, guys. First things first. Now, this is how you network and how you find jobs in this hidden job market. First things, we're going to look at Anusha's profile. And we're going to go, okay, there's her about. And she's been working at Simplus for 1 year, 5 months. And that's a bit interesting. Maybe they rebranded, not sure. But she's been there for a while. She's been in talent acquisition, yada, yada, yada. So what we're going to do now. Now, something interesting has happened where Anusha now knows I've looked at her profile, so she'll get a notification. Naren has looked at you, okay? Now we're going to hit connect. She's in recruitment. We haven't applied for any jobs, but hey, we're going to connect. We're going to add a note. What are we going to say, guys? We could say, hi, Anusha. Please employ me. We're not going to say that, okay? But here's what we're going to say, something like this. Hi, Anusha. And copy this as a template for you guys to use. Now, every connection message will be different, and I'm just going to make this up. Let's do this. Hopefully, Asha, you're certified. We could say with something to do with Salesforce. Whatever the company was. Okay, that's the sort of connection message, guys, that I would encourage you to use. Now, another little thing here, you can see this funny thing here. I use a tool called Grammarly. Okay, even though I'm a native English speaker, sometimes I don't trust my own English, but it's good because it picks up typos as well. Well, it should. There it is. So Grammarly, guys, is a really good tool if if English is not your first language. It shows you any mistakes like that. So guys, what this sort of message is really reaching out in a warmish way to Anusha to say, hey, I'm a Salesforce administrator. I've got this much experience or these skills. I'm open to connecting, okay? So play around with your connection message and try and send it out to as many people as you can using that strategy. Find people, find companies and start connecting, okay? Now, there's a couple of things that can happen. If you send out 100 of these, maybe half will accept, maybe 10 out of 100 will accept your connection. And that's okay. And when they do accept your connection, that's when you can start having a conversation with them. So if Anusha accepts my connection, so let me just hypothetically send one. Here's generally what I say.
Make sure you actually spell her name correctly, unlike Naren's example there, but yeah, because that won't go well.
We'll pick up Langdon. Anushua.
Unusual name, yes.
Hmm.
But she was a client of ours. We'd probably be suggesting that she consider an Anglo name to get her first job in Australia.
Go, Langdon. That's an example, and there's hundreds of thousands where you don't have to.
Yeah, well, maybe, yeah. Once you've got the job, then you can go back to your original name.
I think Langdon's telling me to hurry up. So I'm going to say something like that. Now you can see here, I've still got plenty of characters to use up, but I'm just going to send that off and let's see what happens. But that's what I want you guys to do, which is to really start building up your connections. Okay. Once Anusha connects back with me, then I can send her a message. Okay. I can start a conversation. The whole aim for you guys is this: if she accepts my connection, you can send her a document such as your resume. It then extends the conversation to say, hey, thank you for connecting. Here's what I've been doing. Here are my skills. Please see attached for a copy of my resume. I would love to catch up for a coffee when you've got a spare moment. Okay, now hopefully that may lead to a coffee catch up with Anusha, where you can talk more. And then if something comes up like a 3-month contract or a part-time job, she'll know who you are. So what I'm saying is, look, it's not perfect. It's not going to work all the time, but it beats just sitting at home going, oh my God, no one's giving me a job. You've got to be proactive. So the more Anushas you connect with, if you've got 20 of them, one of them may come back to you and say, hey, we've got an opening coming up. Okay, I'd like you to come in for an interview. And that's how LinkedIn works, okay? Now I'm going to finish off with a little case study. I think that's pretty much it in terms of the connecting. So please try and connect with as many people. Now, you can see here, when you find people, you'll also see that there are people who are similar. Okay, normally it comes up on the right-hand side, but mine's a bit, it's not showing it, but these aren't relevant people, which is a bit weird, but you can see here, Great Innovation, that could be another company. So we're going to have a look at him. Great Innovation Group. Okay. Technology, so they're an IT company, medical devices. LinkedIn is so amazing because you can find all of these companies that hire people who have your qualifications and skills. And these companies may not be advertising, they may not be recruiting, but it's a chance for you to get to know someone within that company. Okay. Now, Jefferson, as an example, he's very senior, he's an executive chairman, but there's no harm in reaching out to him. Okay. If Jefferson is a nice guy and he says, sure, and you ask him, would you mind being like a mentor? Okay. I'd love to catch up for a coffee. He can introduce you to people he knows. I'm sure he knows a lot of people. This is the power of networking. You get to know Jefferson. Jefferson opens his network up to you.
When you write to him, please don't write, "Dear Mr. Harcourt," because that will just be instantly a sign that you don't know how things work in Australia.
Always, "Hi, Jefferson." Okay, keep it casual, professional, casual. Okay, now the last thing I'll just cover off is just a bit of an inspiration story for you guys. One of our very early days client is Ada from Taiwan. So if you think, oh my God, getting a job's hard, I don't have PR, English is not my first language, I don't have local experience, Ada's an inspiration. She came here to study her master's at Melbourne Uni. She had, I think, 11, 12 months on her visa left to run, no local experience. We actually told Ada, look, I don't think we can actually help because, you haven't got a long-term visa, you don't have local experience, you've got a big employment gap, and, we wouldn't feel comfortable, working with you if we don't feel we can help. But Ada persisted and said, no, if I don't get any support, if I don't get a job, I'm going to have to go back to my home country. I really want to stay in Australia. So we reluctantly said, okay, Ada, we'll work with you through our coaching program. And part of our work was helping her with her job applications and her networking. We helped her to get a couple of interviews, but couldn't get across the line. So we helped her optimize her LinkedIn profile. And she was contacted by a recruiter. A recruiter found her. And the recruiter said, one of my clients, okay, has a 3-month contract for a GIS analyst. And that's Ada's background. It's quite niche. It's very specialized because she studied spatial science, I think, Master of Spatial Science back in 2013. And anyway, Ada was contacted by this recruiter. And the recruiter said, I'd like to have a phone interview with you. So we prepped Ada. We helped her to get ready. She passed the phone interview, which I thought was a bit of a miracle, but she got through. And then the recruiter said, please come to my office tomorrow for a face-to-face interview with me. And we helped her with the prep work and she passed that. Again, another little miracle. And then she got an interview with the client, okay, for a 3-month contract. She met the client. And the client was Vic Rhodes. Okay, they had an analyst position with Vic Rhodes. And she was offered the job for a 3-month contract. Now the visa thing came up, but they thought, well, it's a 3-month contract. She's got 11 months of a visa, plenty. Even if we want to extend it for another 3 months, we can still have Ada. Okay. And so what happened was Ada started as a contractor for 3 months. And she ended up working with Vic Rhodes for 3 years, over 3 years, okay? Because she was able to work hard, perform well, and she proved herself. 3 years, 3-month contract turned into 3 years, amazing. On a restricted visa with no local experience, and she was able to get this opportunity through LinkedIn because she had a good profile and she came up in the search results. Since then, she's moved on to a huge engineering company. She's been there. So Ada was one of our earlier clients from 5-6 years ago. But it always sticks in my head, and we've got plenty of others like Ada. But it just goes to show, if you're sitting there going, I've applied for hundreds of jobs, try different approaches, and that will usually help. So that's it for me for LinkedIn. I'm going to now hand over to Langdon, who's going to sort of cover our final section, which is on, we'll stick to follow-ups. Beautiful.
Final 2 sections, actually, as quickly as possible, because we're a little bit behind schedule. We want to allow some time for Q&A at the end, but I'll push through particularly this one as quickly as possible. So once you have drafted your resume and your cover letter for this particular job ad, and you have lodged that and sent it off together with any other applicant documents that they've requested, you are now in a pile or in a folder perhaps on their computer with maybe 50, maybe 100, maybe 150 other applications for that same role. Like Aaron was saying, at the moment, there's a lot of competition for each job that advertises. not for every job. It will depend obviously on the industry, how many people are available for that job and looking. But the main point is going to be lots of competition. So how do you get to stand out from the other 100 resumes that they have received? So one key way that you can do that is through your follow-up strategy. And there are the three main strategies that we've got on the screen there, as you can see: LinkedIn, email, and a telephone call. So we suggest you should be doing all three of those, not one of them or two of them. But if you really want that job, you've got to do all three. You've got to imagine, what if that job was your dream job? You know, and you actually looked at it and you went, oh, that ticks all my boxes. It's close to my home. It's just the sort of work I want to be doing. They're a great company to work for. Chances are you would do everything you could with follow-up to let them know how keen you were and what a great match you are for that role. Take that attitude for every role you apply for. Just maximize your chances of getting each job. Otherwise, why bother sending the application if you're not going to do your best at it? So first thing you can do is, obviously, you've probably found the person on LinkedIn already to address your cover letter to. You can write to them again through an email and through LinkedIn. Quick connection message on LinkedIn, as we've shown you. Hi, I just recently applied for the Salesforce admin role that you advertised. I have strong skills in A, B, and C, and I look forward to connecting with you. Cheers. But just a simple message which connects, so your name pops up. It's all about getting that sort of like brand recognition. We know that with advertising, they say that the first time you see that ad for that new food product, you don't notice it. Second time, you don't notice it. Third time, you don't notice it. Fourth time, your brain starts to go, hang on, I've seen that food item before, and you start to get hungry and you want that food. It's a similar principle here a little bit that we're going for. So you're going to have sent your application documents in. They're going to receive a little connection invitation on LinkedIn with your name. Next thing is you can send them an email, which will be very similar to your cover letter, an introduction of who you are, your main skills, and how you match the job ad. So pretty much the content from your cover letter, and attach your resume. Not the cover letter again, because that's the content of your email. But just say, oh, I've just applied for that role, and here's my main skills. I've attached my resume. I look forward to hearing from you. So again, you've come up through an email, and you've got that extra trouble to write to them. And the last thing you can do is then try to phone them up and talk to them. You may not get through most of the time, but even if they just get a message that so-and-so phoned about that position, Usher phoned about the Salesforce admin position, again, it's just that little trigger of your name. So when they look now through that list of applications, it's a whole lot of just names. But there's your name, and they know that, oh, this is someone who's connected with me on LinkedIn, sent an email, actually phoned up. This person seems really keen to get this role. They've gone to all this trouble. You now stand out from the rest of the applications as someone they're going to look at. So that's why these follow-up strategies are really important. If for the phone call, what's key about doing that is that you prepare a script, so that you don't sort of feel, suddenly you get to talk to them and you don't know what to say. So write down all different scenarios. You might get to, for example, just talk to the receptionist initially. Be clear about what you're going to say. Keep it really short and simple. Like, hi, my name is such and such. What was that person's name? Anusha available, please. Try to keep it short. Don't go into a big long spiel to the receptionist who has very little interest in what your background is, what your skills are that you've applied for that job. They may say, what's the call in relation to? You might quickly explain, I just recently applied for that role. I wanted to have a quick chat to Anusha about the role and about my application. So that's one scenario. Another one is, of course, you might get their voicemail. So are you ready to leave a voicemail message that sounds very professional and that you sound confident and relaxed? And thirdly, you might actually 1 in 10 times get through to the person who you're trying to reach. Are you ready for that conversation with the sorts of questions they're going to have as well? They might ask things like this: oh, well, I've received your application. Yeah, let's have a quick. So what are your salary expectations around this role? And if you have no idea, that's not going to look very good either. Doesn't look very like a professional, someone who knows what they're talking about. Salary expectations, how soon can you start? What makes you a good match for this role? What are your top 3 strengths? Why? How is your last role similar to this role? Those are the very typical recruiter questions, or the questions that might throw at you, just to get a bit more of a sense of who you are. And of course, there's the classic question, well, okay, tell me a bit about yourself then. So how do you answer that in a very clear way, so structured way? So each of those things are ways that you can make yourself, help yourself stand out from the other pile of applications. Give yourself the best chance at each job you apply for by using those follow-up strategies. So moving on, job interviews. We're just going to try to wrap up quickly in about 10 minutes by going through some really important considerations if you do get through to a job interview. Now remember, all the work that you've done so far has been simply to get you to the position of being in a job interview, where you can talk about what you do. They can meet you in person. They can get a feel for whether they're going to work well with you, whether you are confident, whether you have good presentation skills, good communication skills. Right? That's the moment where you have the opportunity, the best opportunity to sell yourself for that job. Everything we've done so far, all those documents, your LinkedIn profile, all the follow-up, has just been to get you into that room, or these days into a Zoom interview most of the time. Hopefully you can see the other people and respond to them in a sort of face-to-face way, right? So making the most of that opportunity is absolutely crucial now. So here's some things to be aware of, first of all. So as you can see on the screen, you should be dressed professionally, obviously. Don't go in a t-shirt. Consider the role that you're applying for. Of course, it's not going to, you're not going to dress the same way if you're going for a role as an accountant as if you are going for a role in a construction site, but you still need to look very well presented, maybe just one little step up from how you would dress in the role. So if you're maybe likely to be sort of wearing something like this in the office, for the interview you might wear a tie, even if you weren't necessarily going to wear a tie for in the job every day, because that's not what anyone else did, right? So well presented, eyes, voice, and posture, and smile. So the way that you come across says a lot about you. We all know the importance of first impressions. So you want to make good eye contact. If you are meeting them in person, we would have said in the past, good firm handshake. Handshakes may not be the right way to approach these nowadays, but your body language needs to show that you are confident about yourself in the role. So if you're sitting in a chair or on the screen and you are sitting, leaning back and sort of hunched over a bit, or looking tense, that is going to communicate itself to the people interviewing you. They're not going to feel comfortable. They're going to think, oh, this person, I'm not sure they're a good energy to have around. So the way that you, maybe even 50% of your job at this point, is just to get them comfortable with you as a person, that you are someone who's confident about what you've got. You know in yourself you're the right person for this role, that you're going to be a great asset to that company. If you can convince yourself of that and have that energy coming out of you, that's going to go a long way to getting them thinking, yeah, this person, I can see this person doing the role, I can see this person fitting in. If you see yourself that way, it helps them see you that way. Phone and face-to-face. Phone might be the first contact you get. The first interview you get will be a phone call. Just the sort of to help them shortlist. They might have maybe 10 people who I think sound good on paper. They don't want to meet 10 people face-to-face and have a half-hour or 45-minute interview with all those people. That's very time-consuming. So there may be an initial phone call. Just be prepared for that. So you need to be answering your phone professionally, not just going, hi, if it's an unknown number, or something more like, hello, Langdon speaking, so that they know that they've reached the right person, and you sound like someone who's confident and in who you are, presenting yourself to the world. So that first phone call might just be the sort of questions I mentioned before about, well, you applied for this job. Can you tell me a bit about yourself? Why did you apply for the job? What are your salary expectations? So just trying to narrow down those 10 people maybe to the 3 or 4 or 5 people they want to meet face to face or in a video interview. Once you've got into the actual proper interview, where they're going to thoroughly go through, their first question is often, so tell me about yourself. And if you, that is your opportunity, because you can script that beforehand, is to have a very neat and clear introduction about who you are and your main skills, your background, your experience, and something about what you're doing at the moment. We suggest to our clients that there are 4 things you need to do. Number 1 is firstly thank them for the opportunity to talk about the role. Get that out straight away. Thank you very much. Number 2, just introduce yourself. As you know, my name is Langdon. I am a software developer with 3 years experience in .NET and programming with Python and so on. So a quick overview of who you are, very short. And then in terms of my background, first of all, I completed a Bachelor in Science and then I completed a Master's in etc. Then I did this role and I worked in this role. So quick overview of who you are, your background. And you can say, currently I am working in a part-time customer service role. However, I'm looking for a role where I can contribute my experience in A, B, and C, matching the key terms from the job ad. I saw this role advertised. I was really excited because I think I'm a great match in terms of the job requirements, the skills you're looking for, and I'm keen to learn more. Right, so that's, if you can make a good first impression with that first answer, it goes a long way to giving them confidence in you, and then for yourself as well. If you've made a good start to the interview, it's going to give you confidence to go on with the rest of the interview. So spend some time crafting that opening pitch, as we call it. It doesn't want to be longer than about 90 seconds at the most, or 2 minutes at the very most, because otherwise they're going to start getting bored. They've got their list of questions they need to get through. If you go on too long, they start to lose interest.
I'll just jump in there, Langdon. And so with this opening pitch, guys, so it was, really common for the interview panel to say, tell us about yourself. But nowadays, panels are being more innovative, and they're mixing up the opening pitch. So you may have geared up and practiced to go, okay, they're first going to ask me about, tell me about myself, tell me about it. So just be prepared for a different question like, what made you apply for this role, Naren? Or they could say, Naren, thank you for your application and thanks for coming in today. What made you apply? How are you going to add value? Okay. Or they could do something very left field and say, thanks so much for coming in for today's interview, Naren. We've had a good look at your application. Tell us something about you that's not on your resume. And you'll be stunned. And you'll be like, well, hang on, no, I thank you for inviting me for today's interview. So as Langdon said, this is a quick opening pitch, 90 seconds, scripted out, cover off only the key things that are going to interest them in terms of you and the match and suitability for the job.
Okay, thanks, Darren. Okay, as you can see, points 5 and 6 are essentially the 2 different types of questions that you are likely to meet. Behavioural is all about what sort of person you are, how you respond to different situations. They are like your generic skills. How do you manage it when you have a lot of responsibilities and there's a lot of pressure on you to get tasks completed? What are your time management skills like, or organisation skills? How do you deal with conflict? Have you had a disagreement with a colleague, or have you had to deal with a difficult client who was very upset and angry about something? How do you respond in that situation? They're questions to feel out what sort of person you are, how you're going to fit into the team, how you're going to, are they going to be able to rely on you to represent the company well if you've got interactions with clients, for example, to try to work out, basically, are you going to fit into the organisation's culture? Are you going to be someone who they can work with? Make a good match for who they are as a team. So the other type of question is more technical, and that's about your skills. Tell us about a time that you used AutoCAD to design a product, or to design some construction or something, whatever it was. And they're looking very particularly to see if underneath what you've written in your resume, there really is understanding and insight and skill there about whatever that particular skills they're looking for that job. So generally speaking, they're the two types of questions. How you answer those questions is going to be the same actually in terms of the structure of your answer. So the best thing to do is to have a solid, concrete example of a time that you did that. So it's not enough to say for a behavioural question, how do you manage conflict with a colleague? You know, if you have a disagreement with someone in the office, how would you manage that? And you say, oh well, you know, I'm very good at dealing with conflict. You know, what I do is we have a sit down with them and just have a good talk about what the issue is and see if I can suss it out. That's what I do. That doesn't convince anyone. Anyone can say that. What's going to bring real weight to your answer, whether it's behavioural or technical, is if you give a specific example from your experience and tell a story about what happened. Everyone loves to hear a story. So if you started talking about a particular time there was a problem or there was a situation where you used that skill and talk it through step by step, they have a much more genuine sense of, yeah, this is someone who knows about this, who's faced this sort of situation before, and that's how they handled it. So for example, with a behavioural problem with a colleague, you might start with an introduction that says something like, well, yeah, I generally don't have problems with colleagues because I'm fairly easygoing and I enjoy working with other people. Of course, there have been a couple of instances where there've been particular problems, but one I can think of is a couple of years ago I was working with someone on a project, and it turned out that they seemed to have really resisting the work they needed to do. They weren't getting their tasks completed, and that was holding me up. And they seemed to be, a bit frustrated or a bit defensive about what was going on. So what I decided to do was I took some time to meet with them at lunchtime one day. I said, look, how about we have lunch together? I sat down with them and I just said, look, how are you going with this work? And I just sort of started to probe what was going on with some questions. And I found out that the person actually didn't have the skills that they were expected. They were really struggling with the particular task they were doing. And that's why it was being held up. They were not sure about how to go about it. So once I understood that, and I could say, oh, okay, let's talk about that. Maybe I could step in, or how about we look at some other resources we could bring in, or whatever it was. So we could work together towards a solution. And the outcome of that was that they felt that they were getting support from me. I put them in touch with another employee in the company who was a specialist in that skill. They sat down, and that person therefore could get their work done, and the project got completed on time. So that sort of concrete step-by-step story where you talk about particular events without naming names, obviously, and how you solve that goes a long way to convincing the interviewers that, yes, this is someone who's going to be able to manage that sort of situation. Or similarly with a technical skill, that's someone who definitely has used that software. If you put particular software, whether it's MS Project for project management, you might just have that on your resume. Maybe that's a really key thing they're looking for that job. If you can talk about a particular project where you used MS Project and what you used it for, the sorts of information you had in there, how using that software helped you collaborate with the other stakeholders and make sure that the timelines were met, all those things talking in the past tense, that gives that real sense of believability of that this is a genuine skill that you have rather than something that you just added to a bit of paper. All right, so the STAR method at the end there is that's a structure for how you can tell your story. So you'll see, if you look up STAR method of answering on Google, you'll find more information about this, but just simply to give you a quick explanation. S stands for the situation. It's your introduction to the story. So you might say, last year I was working on a project at university as part of my master's on designing a new printing platform, or whatever it was that we're working on. there were 4 of us in the team, and our task was to develop to find a more efficient way of going about this process. Right? That gives the situation, so there's a context, so they understand. It's like when you start off a story and you say this story was set in a far-off kingdom and there was a big castle or something. So they've got a picture in their head of where this took place. The T is the task, what you were trying to achieve, or what maybe the challenge was. So that this was what we as a team had to achieve, or this was the difficulty that I was having. And A is your actions. This is the most important part of it. This is what you individually did. First of all, I did this. Secondly, I did this. If you can build in some problems that you experienced in there, it gives a lot more sense of you are someone who has faced similar challenges to what they may be facing in that company. You're going to bring that experience to if you get the role. So along the way, we experienced there was a problem because actually some of the materials we needed to complete this particular project that we're working on were being held up because the supplier had too much demand on their supply at that point, and we weren't. So our timelines were being held up by that. This is how we dealt with that issue. First of all, I contacted them, and then I went and spoke to my manager, and we agreed that we were going to start outsourcing more widely, whatever it was. So don't be afraid to talk about how you have faced difficulties or problems in the past with your the work that you've done or the university projects you've had. That sort of facing difficulties and resolving those difficulties is a key part of any job, any position that anyone's going to face difficulties and challenges. And showing that you're someone who knows how to deal with problems is a really important part of convincing them that you're someone who's right for the job. So an R in the STAR method is the results, just to finish with. That's what was the outcome of that. Did it lead to the project being completed on time, or you got a high grade for your particular project, or you identified a new way of isolating a particular protein if you're some sort of laboratory technician, or whatever it was? What was the outcome? So giving the conclusion to your story that just wraps it up in an effective way for the panel. So that's the STAR method. That's how you structure your story. Around the story, as I said before, there should be an introduction, which just basically talks about maybe, yes, well, this is a situation I've experienced a number of times, or, I've got 2 years experience using Salesforce in different capacities. And then at the end, after your story, a little conclusion where you bring it back to the question to wrap up your answer. So an example of a conclusion for the conflict with or disagreement with a colleague might be, so that was how I dealt with that particular problem. And that's generally my approach. I'll always just try to have a one-on-one chat with them, first of all, to find out, what issues they're facing, to see if there's something I can help with. So I've got a better understanding of what the whole issues are so we can work together on it. And I've found in my experience that taking that approach as my first port of call generally gets things back on track. And that's the sort of the experience I bring to this role. So that's how you can finish up. As I said, we've got the introduction, you've got your story, and you've got your conclusion. If you can answer most of the questions in that way, you are really providing solid evidence that you have the skills that they're looking for. How do you prepare for that? By looking at the job ad. Again, where we started this journey, by analysing that job ad, that's where you're going to spend a lot of time of your research and preparation for the interview. Look through the skills that you've hohighlighted in yellow, however you do it. Make sure you've got an example, a story for each of those skills, for each of the software that they're talking about, each of the technical skills. They may have soft skills in there, which they may ask about as well. See if you can have a good little story, an example for each of those as well. That's where you do your preparation, because that's what they're going to be asking about. The other thing that you can do to prepare for the interview, of course, is keep reading your resume, because one of the things that interviewers like to do is sit there with your resume and go, oh, I see on your resume that in your last role that you say that you liaised with a number of construction engineers to do the designs. Can you tell us more about that? What did you do? And if you haven't got sort of a good story around that, suddenly they start to think, oh, maybe they didn't do that. There's a lack of trust starts to develop. So keep reading your interview, your resume. Make sure that everything you've got in there, you can talk about to some extent, back it up with some sort of story. So I think we better finish up there because we've gone over time, as we always do, Naren.
We do. I'll
just so much to fit in.
I'll just, if we go to the next slide, like we'll just wrap up the interview training. But guys, some of the things that you need to do, as I was just watching Langdon present there, and especially he was using his hands a lot. So when you're in an interview, you almost need to be like an actor or an actress. You've got to keep the panel engaged. You've got to keep it entertaining, which means you've got to smile a lot. You've got to use your hands. You've got to have really good eye contact with each of the panel members. You have to be memorable. Okay, so these are things you need to do. Now, at the
memorable in a good way, not in a bad way. Just
yes,
to make sure everyone's clear about that.
In interview, you should always have 3 or 4 questions to ask. I will usually reject someone if I'm doing an interview and I ask them, I say, well, have you got any questions for us? If they go, nah, not really, that really makes me upset in the sense where I'm like, you're not that keen. You should have a couple of questions. And I'm not talking about basic questions like, so, you know, what's a typical day like here? That's a silly question.
Or the other one that's really bad one to ask is, so what would I get paid?
Yeah.
Don't ask that.
Don't ask controversial questions like, what's the bonus structure like here? You know, do I get paid fortnightly or monthly? You know, this is a terrible question to ask, and a lot of people ask it. What sort of training will I get? Will I be trained in this role? Don't ask it. I want you to ask these questions. Number 1, if I'm selected for this role, what will be the top sort of 2 to 3 priorities I'll be focusing on in the first couple of months? If I'm selected, what will be the key priorities I'll be working on in the first couple of months? That's a good one. Number 2, what's the team structure like here and who will I be working with? Okay, that's another good one would be, are there any KPIs or main goals you want me to achieve? Okay, or a backup question could be, what would you say are the key challenges I might face in this role? So those are the key questions. Now, if they actually answer some of these questions during the interview, you can't ask them at the end. So at the start of the interview, if they say, well, Jennifer, you'll be working with Langdon and Farah to manage this, this, and this. At the end of the interview, if you say, so who will I be working with? They'll be like, well, we sort of explained it. You'll be working with Langdon and Farah, but, you know, this person doesn't listen very well. So those are the those that I want you to do. The very last thing you should say in your interview is this. You should, after you've asked your questions, always wrap up and say, look, you know, those are all the questions I have, you know, thank you for your time again. Oh, sorry, I just wanted to quickly ask, you know, what's the next steps from here? What's the process from here? And then they'll probably say, look, we've got more candidates to interview and we'll be making a decision next week. That's it. And say, fantastic. Thank you so much. You know, again, thank you for your time. And then handshakes, and if depending on the company, but and that's probably it. So look, we will finish there, guys, and we've got sort of 10 minutes for some Q&A. So we're going to keep the chat box open. We'll keep the Q&A open, and we're happy to spend about 10 minutes on questions. If you have any questions that we've covered today, on anything we've covered today, or interview questions or strategies, feel free to pop in a chat question to the group, and we'll go through that. It could be anything on LinkedIn. We had a few good Q&A questions. Thank you, Scarlett. Hopefully that was helpful.
Very quiet group today, Naren. Like last week, we were hit with over 50 questions as we were doing the session. So if there is anything you do want to know, or a particular situation you faced and you weren't sure how you handle it correctly, this is your chance to ask us.
What I might do, guys, while you're thinking of questions, I'm just going to show you a few little things you can do in terms of how we can help you individually. Let's see if you can see this screen. Can you see that, Langdon?
Yes, nicely.
Beautiful. So in terms of, as I mentioned during the webinar, everyone's case is unique and different and special. The first thing we can do is, I'll show you our website in a minute, but we have a careers assessment where you can pop in some key information. So we're a bit like a doctor. We'll diagnose and look at your profile and go, okay, well, this is what this person needs. They need to do this to get a job. So it's a formula, and we'll be able to quickly ascertain or understand where you're going wrong and what you need to do. We have a free consultation as well, so you can book that in after you've done your assessment. We'll look at your resume. We'll give you some feedback to go, hang on a minute, you need to fix this. We've got some free assessment tools. Join us on Facebook. If you just search for Career Success Australia on Facebook, my colleague, her name's Eugenia. Eugenia is always posting really awesome tips and advice on how to get a job. Sometimes I'll see Eugenia's post in my Facebook feed and go, oh my God, I didn't know that. That's pretty awesome. So there's always really cool tips that she's posting. If you want to come and see us, just do a Google search. You can book a session as well and a free phone consult. There's our email there, support@careersuccessaus.com.au. And that's the best way to get in touch with us. If you haven't had a look at our website, I'll just quickly show you here. So that's our website here. You can learn a bit more about us there and our services. Plus, I mentioned our careers assessment, which is just a form here. It just takes about 2 minutes, and that will give us enough information to develop a strategy for you. Once you've done your assessment, the best thing to do is to book a phone consult with me. We'll go through your resume, we'll go through the areas that I think you need to fix, and I'll recommend some strategies, and then we can proceed from there. So that's a little bit about how we can help. So I'll just keep this up there, and we'll also have a look at some of your questions. So please keep the questions coming. This is a great opportunity for you to ask anything you want. So Langdon, do you want to keep an eye out on the chat box?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for your appreciative comments. Can you spell the FB name, please?
Oh, the Facebook name? Saroj, our Career Success Australia. It's just our organization name. Himanshu, thank you very much. I've attended so many programs, but this one is the best. Really valuable. What made it so valuable, Himanshu? What was the good thing about it? That would be nice to know.
Okay, and then I can't see your full name because it gets cut off after the first 3 letters. Unfortunately, SCA. You've asked regarding CVs, graduated in fashion. Okay, now looking to change fields and do digital marketing. Unsure what jobs to include on my CV. So if you're applying for digital marketing jobs and you don't have any experience in that field, that's obviously very hard. If you have done, as Naren said before, if you have done some studies in that area, it may be that you want to put your digital marketing projects on the first page before your actual work experience so that they can see what skills you've got, but pushing that onto that valuable real estate of the first page of your resume. If you don't, obviously you can't put something that you haven't done. It's better though to have put in there the fact that you have worked in those other roles, because that shows that you are someone who has been employed before, you understand how to be an employee. It's much better to have something on a resume than nothing. Always they're going to go, an employer is going to choose someone who's got some work experience over someone who doesn't have any. They don't want to be the employer who breaks someone in for the first time, who's never really been an employee before, doesn't really know how to fit into a team, all those sorts of things that go around being an employee. So something is better than nothing. Obviously, if it's not directly related to the job that you're applying for, you wouldn't have half a page of responsibilities that aren't very relevant. So maybe in those sort of cases, try to find some common areas of responsibilities or skills that might overlap with the role you're applying for, even if it's more the generic skills of liaising with clients or using particular sort of software, something that there's some connection with the role you're applying for, so they can see you've got some starting point. It's very hard changing fields, working into a new industry or new field if you haven't got experience. We've got a number of clients doing that. It's very hard because what the recruiters are looking for is your most recent role, and is it similar to what they're looking for, to the role that they are looking for someone.
Okay, Langdon.
Biggest thing, yeah.
Can I just jump in there?
Yeah.
Sorry. So Scarlett, I'm just conscious we've got
that's what
questions.
Yeah, thank you.
To get through. So Scarlett, here's what I would do. Hop onto you, and this applies to everybody listening. Number one, hop onto Udemy or LinkedIn Learning. Okay. If you want to change fields, you've got to get the latest certification. So if we're talking digital marketing, SEO, SEM, WordPress, EDM marketing, learn those skills, get the certification, Scarlett. Then you need an internship. In terms of getting an internship, this applies to everybody. Use my strategy on LinkedIn, find 50 advertising agencies, write to the directors, the creative directors, and go knock on their door, okay? Or email them, connect and go, hey, here's my portfolio. Can I come in 1 or 2 days a week to help, to get some experience? That's what you need to do, Scarlett. Okay, I'll just fly through these, and please keep the questions coming so we can help as much as we can. Raghavendra, that's awesome. Thank you very much. You like our voices. I'm pretty sure there'll be people who disagree, but that's awesome. I'm glad we were able to. I wish you taught me some subjects at university. Well, I used to do some lecturing at Swinburne. I miss it, and I might go back. Himanshu, that's awesome. Thank you very much. The resume, it's a science writing a resume, so use our formula. Beautiful. Now, anonymous attendee, how long should your resume be for a fresh graduate? I would go 2 pages, okay? Anonymous, 2 pages. That's probably the right length. Okay, Karina, what about expression of interest? Okay, your expression of interest is what we call a cold email. If you're unemployed, you should be sending out some of these cold emails to as many decision makers. And that's basically to pitch, to say, hey, this is who I am. These are the skills I have. This is how I can solve your problems and help you as a company. So yes, you need that. Karina, to justify a long gap, should I add my freelance project? 100%. If you have a gap, if you've done freelancing work, put it in. Okay. How long is considered as a long gap? I think anything over 6 months is a long gap. Okay. Up to 3 months is okay. When you start moving more than 3 months, then we start looking a bit dodgy. Unless you can justify it with maternity leave or paternity leave, or you've done a 1-year MBA or something. Prasad, many interviews now start with a long introductions. Yeah. Okay. Prasad, you asked some good questions. So yes, they do sometimes tell you, Prasad, thank you for coming in today. The role is about this. And then they'll open up to your question and go, so how do you think you fit into this role? Okay, then you need to say, well, sure, I was really excited to see this job come up because when I read it, I could see that you guys are looking for A, B, C, D. In my previous role, this is exactly what I did. Okay, so you need to sort of handle or respond to exactly what they are specifically asking for. Okay, Prasad, if you ask something that's not on your resume, do you state something personal to show you are more well-rounded, or should you da, 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 da? Okay, so sometimes they will ask, tell us something not in your resume. I would probably lean towards something personal. Okay,
Yeah.
so you could talk about something and say, sure, well, you've obviously read my resume, you know all about my experience and skills. Look, I guess something that's not on my resume is that in my spare time, I'm a professional cyclist, and my actual aspiration is to go to France to be part of Tour de France as a blah, blah, blah. Or you could say, look, something that's not on my resume is that I volunteer with Brotherhood of St. Lawrence every Sunday. I do da, 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 da. Something that's not on my resume, I'm actually writing a novel, whatever. Something that's not on my resume, I'm actually a Forex trader. Something that's not on my resume, well, I'm actually learning to play the cello. I find classical music is my passion, blah, blah, blah.
Can I just jump back to Prasad's previous question?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's specifically asked, in that case, what in the world are you left with to ask? Specifically, questions, when they say to you, have you got any questions for us? And they've sort of gone through everything. So that one of the question you may be able to ask is just, what do you see as the challenges for someone coming into this role? They don't often volunteer challenges in that sort of introductory talk with an overview of the role. So you could ask about that. What do you would see would be the challenging aspects of this role for someone coming into it? But then if you've been a really good listener and you know something about the products or the services, you've already got some questions, it really helps if you can ask a specific question about something that they've given you information about, because it shows that you've been a really good listener. If they're talking about a particular service that they are providing, and then you zero in on that and you say, oh, look, I was really interested to hear you talk about the fact that you provide such and such a service to the financial industry. How long have you been doing that, and what do you see as the main benefit for those clients? So if you can really key in on something, that information they've provided with you to you already, show that you're a good listener and that you have some sort of knowledge about that as well, and you wanting to just sort of understand more about that, that's going to be a help as well.
Yeah. I'm just conscious of time, and I know some of you may need to take off, but it'll be appreciative from our side if before you leave, if you could just pop in some feedback in the chat, whether you found the session useful or if there's any areas you would like us to spend more time. We could spend the whole day just on one topic, guys, so we've had to condense everything and smash it into sort of 2.5 hours to give you as much value and information as possible. But hopefully whatever we've covered has been a big help. So feel free to use the chat to say, yes, you guys were really great, or
I need to say that we were really great.
Or you could say this is the worst session I've ever been to.
Yeah.
And
I've typed a question in there. What was the most valuable part of the session for you? So in terms of where you're coming from, it may be different for everyone because of where your existing skills are or where you feel you're being held up now in the job search process. But please just maybe type in quickly what you feel you personally got the most out of in terms of the different areas we covered. Just to go through that again, we did job search and job ad, reading a job ad, resume, cover letter, LinkedIn, the follow-up process, and interviews. I think that's 6 areas. Yeah? So which of those in particular did you feel is going to help you the most in terms of job search?
Himanshu's got a question there. Engineering, 4 years in finance, now doing a master's. How will I get a job after too much gap? The reality, Himanshu, is you may need to do something like an internship to bridge the gap and to get your foot in the door, or some volunteering experience in the industry or the area you're looking to get into. Internships, they're a little bit painful because sometimes they're unpaid and you've got to do 3 to 5 days a week. But take it from someone who works in this area. Employers value industry experience much more than a master's degree. Okay, everybody has master's degree. Previously, I used to work at Monash, Melbourne, Swinburne. I did contracts at RMIT. And I think what is being taught at university is a bit of rubbish in some instances. I'm happy to argue with anyone on that. You can't beat getting into an office like this, working in a small or big team, and learning hands-on how things work, whether it's in engineering or design or finance. So that's why internships, I think, are still important, as long as you get the right internship. Madhu, yes, we're going to send out an email with these details. Thank you, Prasad. Yep, cool, good stuff, Rag Vendra. Networking, cool, good stuff. Rakesh, cybersecurity, it's a niche area. Not many opportunities. I think the best opportunity for you, Rakesh, would be to try networking with cybersecurity specialist consulting firms. Certainly doing online courses is good. And you may need to, you know, let's say you want to work in a niche area like cybersecurity. You may need to get into a mid-tier or big size firm, like a tech consulting firm that may have a security division. But you may start off in a different area, like in a NOC, Network Operations Center, or, you know, worst case, like help desk. And then you've got to work your way up into the field you want. That's one option. Raghavendra, we've sort of covered that, what to include on resume when you approach people on LinkedIn. You've got to put in the most compelling attributes, your technical skills, your highlights. Thanks, Yen Wei. Cool, Karina, that's good. Beautiful, awesome. There's a few more questions. I think that's it.
We're pretty much wrapped up. Thank you.
Yep, cool. Well, we will be sending out an email, guys, with the templates and hopefully a recording of this.
Thanks, Madhu, as well for your comment.
Yep. Feel free to post any comments in terms of your feedback. Have a look at our email. If you have any follow-up questions, guys, just get in touch. Otherwise, we wish you all the very best with your job search. So we'll keep the chat going for a couple of minutes, but if you have to take off, fantastic. Otherwise, we'll wrap up at 1 o'clock. Thank you, Cherry. Appreciate it.